it is, you know, the students were killed, yesterday, who actually...
6 to be very precise on this one.
Closed school. It's now still rainy season. Yes, Ram.
And that's actually my concern. Now, consider this fact here. In the past few months, how many students have we lost?
Yes.
In terms of lives lost for our children. Road accidents, school food poisoning. Parents are mourning in the country, and I'm really concerned about how the government is going to address our roads, the state of affairs in both the education sector and the transport sector, because these are areas where students always use when it comes to our roads, coming back from school and going back to school, when it comes to the food they eat, when they leave home and they go to school, how are they catered for? So these are really, really severe cases that make Kenyans wonder and want to cry each and every day, because these numbers are alarming.
Exactly. And this is somebody was saying that students might not have a voice to tell drivers to slow down. There is that hype, you know, they want to get home faster. Drivers also want to cash in because it's now the closing period. Students are going back home for their holidays, and then now with other Kenyans, they'll be able to raise their voice, but students won't. So,
but also there was concern about this particular circle. You know, we had to establish the full story, but there were concerns, particularly when you look at comments from Kenyans who've used it, of high speed of the road. So again, these are things that we need to be looking into. You can imagine this child that spoke with the mom or the father, and they said, I'm actually at point X, and then the next phone call you're hearing is that they are... It's really traumatizing.
Kenyan parents are mourning.
Something needs to be done, and of course now it's still rainy season. Let's just do the best. And this calls for the return of Mishuki rules. Regina, I mean, we had some sanity way back in the past. I mean, the speed governors were there, the police officers were always on the road. But right now, I mean, it's a state of affairs. Much as we want to talk about politics, we also need to talk about things that really affect us directly. Accidents on our roads. Regina, good morning.
Good morning to you, team, and I like the direction that the conversation is taking. Right now, any parent who is expecting their child home is actually worried. Majority of them are opting to drive to their various schools to pick their children because the roads are no longer safe. Why? Because motorists have become careless, and this is costly in as far as life is concerned. But I'd also want to challenge, you know, each one of us, especially when we're riding on these PSVs. If you see it well, poorly driven, do you actually call out the driver, or do you assume, are you wearing your earphones, busy on your phone, not minding exactly what's happening on the road when they're overtaking where they shouldn't or overspeeding? Do you have, the guts to actually call them out for that rogue behavior? A majority of us remain mum, and we only react after the fact, which is not. And we had seen, I think, the NTSA come up with a program targeting, the community, Wanjiko, so to speak, Sikika. Sikika. And you had these stickers plastered all over within the PSVs that you need to raise alarm so that you caution the driver if they are behaving in a rogue manner. But we have forgotten, and especially when it comes to the rules, seat belts. Right now, even if we were to do a spot check across all the various routes, how many have functioning seat belts? Secondly, do you even have those speed governors in place? I know of several routes that I have used, and they're whizzing past the 80. They're doing more than 100 on this particular highways. So it is us. We let go to Lilegeza Kamba, and
do you know about something called public arrest? That you have a right, as a Kenyan, you have a right to do a public arrest and hand over even that driver to a police. You can.
How many of us know that that one actually exists?
It exists. Public arrest. You can actually arrest a driver and take him to police station.
Well, actually, nowadays, many Kenyans are in a hurry. They choose to be quiet because, at least this driver
in fact, sometimes when they're moving at a slow pace, they're like, I'm time. So are we also contributing factors as citizens to this much, as we would really talk so much about the drivers and the circles and the likes, but is it a consolidated kind of effort that we partly also contribute to some of these things that we see on the roads?
Something
there is this.
Yeah, there is this.
It's always about the nganya, the one that moves fastest is what that
because
gets, you know, more traction, especially at the matatu pit there.
Yeah.
So that, you know, this is the latest matatu in town. It moves as fast, you know.
And the question is, should the NTSA tighten the rope on our roads?
It's not a matter of should.
It actually should.
It ought to have been so.
Yes. That is the...
Anyway.
That's the thing. All right. Good morning, Regina. Take it away.
Okay, and we start off from that particular point. Just some sad story here. 6 students from Bihi Friends High School in Vihiga have been confirmed dead following a grisly road accident involving a public service vehicle and a lorry along the Nairobi-Nakuru highway. Reports indicate that the students were headed to Nairobi when the tragic accident occurred. 7 other students sustained injuries in the incident were rushed to Naivasha County Hospital for medical attention.
11 students from Bihi Friends High School in Vihiga and a driver were involved in a gruesome accident near Delamere Farm on Tuesday. Reports indicate that the students were headed to Nairobi when the collision happened. The accident occurred when the matatu from Swat Sacco collided with a transit trailer and lost control before colliding with a lorry. The accident claimed the lives of 5 students on the spot, and their bodies were later taken to Naivasha Sub-County mortuary. The 6th was pronounced dead on arrival at Naivasha Sub-County Hospital. 7 of the survivors were rushed to the hospital for medical services. According to Naivasha OCPD Benjamin Bowen, the accident occurred after the driver of the ill-fated matatu tried to overtake a fleet of vehicles.
It happened that this vehicle was trying to overtake a long fleet of vehicles near the Delamere part of the road, when unfortunately another lorry was coming from the Nairobi general direction, and it met head-on.
Bowen said that the injured were rushed to Naivasha Sub-County Hospital, with 3 of them in critical condition after suffering from head injuries.
So the survivors were rushed to Naivasha Sub-County Hospital, where they are undergoing treatment with various injuries. 2 are serious because they have been placed in oxygen, but others are responding well to treatment. Otherwise, that's a very unfortunate event which could have been avoided if the drivers observe the traffic rules.
The incident comes after another tragic accident involving the Pwani University bus and a matatu occurred along the same highway, with National Transport and Safety Authority attributing the rise in cases of accidents to more vehicles failing roadworthy inspection tests.
We'll be keeping tabs on that particular issue, especially the condition of the 7 that were rushed to the Naivasha hospital. We wish them a quick recovery. Now, the government will intensify efforts to bring down the cost of food in the country. Speaking at a cabinet meeting in State House, Nairobi, President William Ruto said the cabinet has noted with satisfaction that the interventions brought down the price of maize meal to an average of 155 shillings from a high of 230 shillings. With enhanced production coupled with the government's strategic policy measures, the cabinet pointed out that Kenya will soon become self-sufficient in as far as food is concerned. And that would be a welcome relief to many households who are having to dig deep into their already dried pockets to ensure that they have at least 3 square meals for themselves and their dependents. Now on to politics. The Azimio la Umoja coalition has pulled out of the proposed bipartisan talks, accusing their colleagues in Kenya Kwanza of not showing commitment to the public discourse. Raila Odinga and his allies say the instance on a parliamentary process goes against the spirit of transparency. Azimio wants the talks held outside Parliament, and that Kenya Kwanza must demonstrate the willingness to engage on issues bedeviling the country.
Raila Odinga and his allies have upped the ante in the push for a holistic approach to the proposed bipartisan dialogue. Days after announcing the resumption of mass protests, Azimio has withdrawn its participation from the talks altogether.
We have insisted on an extra-parliamentary process in view of the strictures of debate in Parliament. We will therefore not participate in any such parliamentary process. B, the motion is disguised as a product of bipartisanship, when in fact the leadership of Azimio in Parliament were neither aware nor consulted in its drafting.
Azimio says Kenya Kwanza has shrouded the talks in so much mystery that the opposition has found it impossible to engage going forward.
The delay in naming his team is another sign of a lack of seriousness that has been made worse by the inclusion of members of the Azimio coalition in his team, when the whole country knows that respect for multi-party democracy is one of the key issues we have put on the table. Number 3, to date, Kenya Kwanza has failed to name the leadership of his team as a way of stonewalling.
On Tuesday, the leader of Minority Party in the National Assembly declined to submit the list of their 7 members to the Speaker, arguing that the Kenya Kwanza government had not demonstrated the political will to engage in the talks.
First and foremost, I must admit that I was taken aback when I read in the media that a motion had been forwarded to the Speaker's office about this bipartisan engagement. Because that couldn't have been a motion about bipartisan engagement, for the simple reason that my coalition was never consulted. It has now turned out, of course, that it was basically a draft motion for the Kenya Kwanza side.
Indeed, by the time the Honorable Leader of Minority retreats to his office, he will find a letter on his desk asking that hopefully before the end of this week, we have a forum, which I do pray that Parliament will be able to facilitate. Hopefully with the Leader of Minority in the National Assembly, the Leader of Minority in the Senate, the Leader of Majority in the Senate, and the proposed co-chairs that have been proposed by both coalitions, to be able to sit now and harmonize whatever issues that will be up for deliberation.
Senate Speaker Amason Kingi on Tuesday confirmed to have received the draft motions from both parties that are meant to set the stage for the bipartisan talks.
The draft notice of motion also states the terms of reference of the proposed Joint Select Committee. Honourable Senators, in view of the importance of this matter, I have consulted the Speaker of the National Assembly on a common procedure by Parliament establishing the proposed Joint Select Committee. Honourable Senators, this being a bipartisan matter, I have instructed the Clerk of the Senate to forward the draft notice of motion to the Senate Minority Leader for his consideration and necessary action.
Azimio is however adamant that the planned demos shall proceed unless the government stops the ongoing monkey wrench.
So it means after Ramadan, we are back to Machozi Monday and Thursday, or Maandamano Monday and Thursday, as now government and opposition return to where we were at stalemate in regard to a raft of issues, including opening up of the servers that was supposed to be tackled or discussed in the bipartisan talks that the Azimio team yesterday pulled out of. What are political pundits saying about this? What is the ripple effect in as far as matters of political representation in the country is concerned? And what should Wanjiku be looking out for? I'm sure those are particular questions that are going to be adversely discussed in the course of this particular program when we speak matters politics. Still keeping up on what is happening in as far as leadership and governance is concerned is that senators have revived the battle for more allocation of funds to counties, rejecting the 15 billion shilling increment recommended by Treasury. During debate of the Division of Revenue Bill, the senators termed the National Assembly's amendments to the bill that raised the county allocation to 385 billion shillings as a drawback to fulfillment of devolution. They demanded that the counties be given 407 billion shillings as recommended by the Commission on Revenue Allocation. Governors had, however, demanded an annual allocation of 425 billion shillings.
We are being denied money because Treasury is saying the Eurobond is due and they want to pay the entire principal and interest. Madam Speaker, who does that? Is it wrong to have a debt? It is not wrong, I dare say that.
Kuna watu walipinga hii katiba ya mwaka wa 2010 na nafikiri wao ndio wako uongozini saizi. Inaweza kuwa yule mtoto ambaye wanamlea kwa vile si mtoto wao, na Waswahili wanasema mama wa kambo si mama. Inaweza kuwa ndio maana tunaona mambo kama haya ya kupunguza pesa za kwenda kwa magatuzi, kwa sababu kwanza hawakuamini ile katiba.
Speaker, I know resources have gone to the county, but most counties, when you go to the ground, there is nothing that you see that is substantial, that is like a flagship project because of corruption. We devolved corruption from the national government to the county governments.
Let us do what we were elected to do. I am heartbroken to hear senators who I know their counties require more resources because of political expediency coming here to argue that the 385 proposed is enough. I have never seen anyone who's been given an opportunity to increase the stock of their own people giving up that at the altar of political expediency, Madam Speaker.
I suggest that we look at the report submitted by our committee. The committees must mean something, Mr. Speaker. We cannot trash our own committees when they sit, spend a lot of time, come up with technical evaluations of what they are doing, and our committee's recommendation actually aligns to the CRA recommendation. I think this Senate needs to rise up to the occasion, do the right thing. Don't just back this bill just because it has come from the National Assembly. Otherwise, why do we exist as a Senate?
The budget-making process there includes, public participation as well as, having various counties adequately, represented in this. This matter of the county revenue allocation bill is quite been a thorny issue that we have seen even in the past, or rather previous administration, and we hope that they're going to get to a consensus with those who are working or having even supplied services and products within the counties, saying or rather crying over non-payment. So we hope that this is going to be resolved soon enough. Now we cross over to Kisumu, where residents of Kisumu City and its environs have been directed to maintain the highest levels of hygiene to curb the spread of a cholera outbreak. The health department is monitoring the situation in areas such as Nyalenda and Kisumu East, where cases of the disease have been reported.
According to the county's health department, 5 cases of cholera have been reported in the last 1 month.
We have 2 epicenters, one in Nyalenda and one in Kisumu East. But the Nyalenda one seems to be the main epicenter in the county at the moment.
The department says it is closely following some reported diarrheal cases, having also intensified inspection of eateries.
Watu wealth wametembea side za Nyalenda. Wamesema kuanzia kesho hakuna kufungua mahotelini juu ya kolera.
Tumeambiwa tuchemuse maji ya kunawa na wafanyakazi wawe na medical certificate, wawe wakichunguza usafi.
Residents have in turn claimed that the hygienic condition of the water supplied to households by the Kisumu Water and Sanitation Company, Kiwasco, has been questionable lately.
Shida yetu kubwa yenye tuna face kama watu wa Nyalenda ni maji ya Kiwasco. Kiwasco wametuletea shida sana, maji inakuja ikiwa chafu, na saa zile ni safi inakuja na lot of chlorine yenye huwezi consume. Sasa ningependa kuomba, apart from closing the eateries, washughulikie mambo ya Kiwasco.
The highly contagious disease, which is spread majorly through contaminated food and water, can be prevented through a range of precautions, among them high standards of personal hygiene. and ensuring food is properly cooked and served hot. From Kisumu County, I am Wycliffe Okech.
Now back to Parliament, and speaking matters of power is that the Kenya Power Company and KETRACO are on the spot for inefficiencies that limit the country's capacity to offtake electricity generated by independent power producers. The ongoing probe on cost of electricity by Senate Energy Committee has established that the taxpayers are still footing the bill for electricity generated but not distributed due to inadequate transmission and distribution capacities. Meanwhile, the National Assembly Public Accounts Committee now wants the Office of the Auditor General to conduct a special forensic audit on the recent purchase of subsidized fertilizer.
The Senate Energy Committee invited Triumph Power, one of the key independent power producers, to engage on interventions required in the sector to lower the cost of electricity. The power production company indicating the main challenge was the capacity of Kenya Power Company to offtake all generated electricity.
What we procure is what is it generated. That is not actually what is consumed. And we would realize that we have a loss of about 26 up to 26%.
The transmission lines are old,
yes,
and they are not well maintained,
yes,
and therefore there is a loss on the transmission lines of about 26%.
The power purchase agreements entered between the independent power producers and the government in 2013 compels Kenya Power Company to pay for electricity generated by the independent power producers, whether it is dispatched or not. The Senate Energy Committee is now imploring on the ministry to consider terminating the agreements and paying damages, since it is cheaper than sustaining the expensive contracts up to 2032.
Assuming Kenya Power doesn't come to you this month at all, do they still pay you? And if they pay you, how much do they pay for unsupplied power?
Even if they don't dispatch us, but they are obligated to pay us because we are on standby. It is just like a watchman sitting at your house. You need to call him whenever you want. He should be ready. So this is the same role we play.
And that is why we must start asking the question, is it not maybe cheaper? Is it not maybe safer environmentally to terminate, pay the damages to the supplier, we save the environment, and we also at the same time save the future costs that will come with pollution of the environment.
Meanwhile, the National Assembly Public Accounts Committee now wants the Office of Auditor General to conduct a special forensic audit on 15 billion shillings purchase of subsidized fertilizer. Committee Chairperson John Buddy says the Auditor General should furnish the Watchdog Committee with a report in 30 days.
We took a decision on 30 days, and that today, this morning, we have agreed that we are going to come up with a TOR for terms of reference for the Auditor Generals.
So if this matter is not arrested now, and we know this will be happening maybe this year, next year, subsidizing production, then probably we are going to have bigger or more major scandals.
The suspicious purchase of the fertilizer was done by the Ministry of Agriculture after the money was appropriated in the supplementary budget of 2023-2024.
Well, the debate around the cost of power is something that is going to rage on until we put some few things correct, in as far as even the deals that the government had gotten into with independent power producers. There, we're at a time when also government is also working hard to have the e-mobility recommendations adopted by Kenyans, which means that if you have an electric cars, government is encouraging you to charge those particular cars at night and get to utilize at least 1,500 megawatts of power that is not taken up during off-peak hours. We'll be keeping tabs on that. Now let's cross over to the region, where the International Federation of Red Cross and the Red Crescent Societies has warned that if the fighting in Sudan continues much longer, the Sudanese health system will collapse. The federation says with the raging fight, it is nearly impossible to provide humanitarian aid in and around the capital, Khartoum.
Nearly 200 people have been killed and over 1,800 injured since fighting broke on Saturday between rival factions that disagreed on how the country should transition to civilian rule. The International Federation of Red Cross and Red Crescent Societies head of delegation for Sudan, Farid Aiwa, has been quoted by international media houses saying there were calls from organizations and people trapped in the city asking for evacuation. WHO Sudan representative Dr. Nima Said Abid says most of the hospitals are now reporting being out of medical supplies, blood bags, oxygen and other many important medicine and surgical kits. The U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken had earlier spoken to Sudanese Army Chief Abdel Fattah al-Burhan and the head of the paramilitary Rapid Support Forces, Mohamed Hamdan Dagalo, amid fighting between the two forces for a ceasefire. Blinken, through a tweet, underscored the urgent need for the end of the hostilities and emphasized the importance of ensuring the safety of diplomatic personnel and aid workers. The Rapid Support Forces has acknowledged the phone call with the U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken on its social media page, but has given no firm commitment to end the hostilities. A second 3-hour ceasefire on Monday night was barely honored, with both sides blaming each other for the breach. As the situation gets dire in the third biggest country in Africa, the international community is calling for an immediate stop to the fighting and armed actions.
On that note, we take a quick breather. We'll be right back with more. Do not go away.
say to make it right, 'cause I need your arms around me every night. To me your world.
Umepata DNA confirmation and apparently it's him. He's dead, man.
I'm so sorry.
Prison wetu HPT ni brother Imran.
Brother wako ni terrorist.
Kama unaenda kuniseti, malizane tu na wewe hapa.
Naumwa, katana, naumwa. Relax, itakuwa sawa.
Kama kweli nakupenda, sifai kukuficha chochote, sio?
Sasa mbona unataka tufanye kazi yenye hatuwezi fanya?
Something big is on the horizon and we need to get ahead of it.
The F5 jets will be airborne in 10 minutes.
Good morning. You're still watching In the Headlines. I'm Regina Manyara. A quick update in regard to what is happening in Sudan. Reports indicate that General Mohammed Hamdan Dagalo, the military vice president, better known as Hemeti, who commands the RFS, on Tuesday said that he had agreed to a one-day armistice, given that fighting had raged since Saturday between the president-backed Sudanese armed forces and the paramilitary rapid support forces loyal to the country's powerful vice president. So far, 180 people have been confirmed dead and more than 1,800 wounded. We'll be keeping tabs on the Sudan crisis. Now let's speak about business, where the government could soon be returning to the international capital markets to issue a sovereign bond meant to fund development projects. The National Treasury has published an expression of interest for financial institutions in and around North America, Europe and Asia for lead manager services. The targeted institution will be required to advise the government on the most appropriate timing, format, amount and tenure of international bonds and the best methods of managing the current outstanding Eurobond debt.
Kenya is expected to pay a majority of the 2 billion Eurobond debt by the end of next year and clear the remainder by the year 2028. The yields of this Eurobond peaked mid-last year but dipped by February this year, shrinking by up to 51% within the duration. This fluctuation, however, still kept yields above registered rates, reinvigorating Kenya's prospects of returning to the international market. The National Treasury confirmed the same through the announcement of the need of a lead manager service providing financial institution to guide it in fulfilling the conditions for the issuance of an international bond and to lay out a medium-term debt management strategy for the existing Eurobond debt. It is required of the lead manager institution to have professional experience in issuance of international sovereign bonds and implementation of liability management operations for emerging markets. The targeted firm will also be required to seek and liaise with potential investors and manage the book building process. Moreover, the lead manager of the proposed sovereign bond will be required to coordinate all other affiliated service providers, ensuring the legal, fiscal, listing and settlement requirements are fulfilled during the issuance execution process. The government expects interested bidders to submit in writing their documents by 28th of this month.
Well, that is that, with tax experts highly against more borrowing. Now, almost 14 million Kenyans do not have any form of savings towards their retirement. The majority of the workers are in the informal sector, which employs 8 out of 10 workers in Kenya. The Retirement Benefits Authority says it has embarked on a nationwide public mobilization campaign to increase the number of retirement savers from the current 25% to 30% in the next 5 years.
Kenya is grappling with low savings culture despite having more than 2,000 retirement savings schemes. Out of the 3.5 million employed workers, more than 2.7 million contribute only to the mandatory National Social Security funds, where close to 800,000 save with NSSF and other savings schemes. The Retirement Benefits Authority blames the low numbers on lack of education, poor saving culture and low remuneration among workers. Despite the low number of savers, the assets under management stands at 1.6 trillion shillings from less than 45 billion shillings in the year 2000.
So membership, we are almost now about, I think, 3.2 million. We have seen the industry go to about 1.8 trillion so far. We have also seen the coverage moving from as low as 8% now to a region of about 23%. At the same time, we have also seen the service providers increasing. Like, for example, now we have about 11 custodians, we have about 24 fund managers, and allow 33 administrators. So the growth has been tremendous.
The Retirement Benefits Authority plans to increase the number of members by 10% in the next 5 years.
We realize that the formal sector is basically more like covered, and the 20% which is covered is basically on the formal sector, but the 80% falls within the informal sector. And this informal sector includes the Juakali sector, and this is why we are putting a lot of focus, because we ensure that the mama mboga, the guys of the border borders, those professionals who have got no other form of employment can be able to join the nest of pension.
RBA, in partnership with Huduma Kenya, has embarked on nationwide public engagement campaigns to sensitize the public on the importance of saving.
18 Huduma centers are now providing services from 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. This is to allow the hustlers to be able to receive services outside of the normal operations so that they are able to engage in other economic activities during the day.
There has been a good sensitization of all the stakeholders within the county, and we hope that they will benefit from the various products which they have for the retiring generation.
With a key focus on the youth and individuals in the informal sector, the Retirement Benefits Authority insists that the time to save is now and that it's never too late to begin saving. Trevor Ngendo reporting for KBC Channel 1 from Nyeri County.
The government should prioritize agriculture, small businesses, housing, healthcare, creative economy and the environment in the next budget. This is according to the economic and tax experts at Ernst & Young, who feel these areas are key to lowering the cost of living, creating jobs through entrepreneurship and supporting online businesses as well as services.
The draft budget policy statement indicates that the government intends to spend 3.63 trillion shillings in the next financial year that starts July this year. 2.89 trillion shillings is expected to be collected locally, leaving a deficit of 740 billion shillings. Economic and tax experts at Ernst & Young expect that the budgetary allocation to enhance food security, create jobs, reduce the cost of living and encourage more to go online will be increased in the next financial year.
Of course, we need to fund those because that is the blueprint that we are operating under Kenya Kwanza regime.
They have renewed calls on the government to widen the tax bracket, targeting the informal sector and wealthy individuals to boost revenue collection.
Expand the tax base for informal sector and high net worth individuals. I still believe that we have very many high net worth individuals basically who are not paying taxes, and we need to tap those.
They further urged the government to cut down on borrowing, citing growing public debt that was at 9.2 billion shillings in January this year, according to the Central Bank of Kenya data.
The focus at the moment should be to drive revenue mobilization measures to just make sure we are collecting as much as we can. Number two, trying to rebalance our economy to reduce the pressure around the dollar. I think some of the issues you have with the dollar is just structural on how our economy is. We are importing many things we should not be importing, and we are dollarizing too many things we should not be dollarizing.
On that note, we delve into matters sports, where the Football Kenya Federation has asked Parliament to enact laws that criminalize match fixing. In his submissions to the National Assembly Sports and Culture Committee, FKF President Nick Mwendo said the absence of local laws to address match fixing led to the rise of cases involving the vice. Now, he said that the inadequate financial resources at both club and federation levels made teams and match officials become vulnerable to match fixing gangs. He further added that there was a need for FKF and the Ministry of Sports to carry out a sensitization program to curb the vice.
Is that we cannot act against people who are not members. So we need regulation in terms of law to allow law enforcement to act against somebody who we can report to be told to have fixed a match, and we are required to provide evidence of a certain nature, and therefore they can be taken to court, and they can even be jailed, or action can be taken against them. That is what we are lacking in Kenya.
So we want to do it properly and comprehensively with all stakeholders on board, so that we come up with a very robust sports act that will be used to govern our industry in this country.
I am waving to none other than Chelsea fans out there, including Ben, who is not here in studio, as well as Owen, as Fadili. Hello, Chelsea. Hello, Chelsea fans. Man, you're having a hard time. Hello? We're not saying hello, we're saying hello. Anyway, now this is according to the Champions League quarter-final results yesterday, where Chelsea lost 2-0 to Real Madrid, while Napoli squared it out with Milan ending on a 1-1 draw. That is as far as yesterday's results of the Champions League quarterfinal is concerned. Also on the quarterfinal today, we're going to be having Bayern Munich taking on Manchester City. Manchester City, who are going to do that thing in as far as Arsenal is concerned. That is at 10 p.m. tonight. Victor is not so happy about that, but hey, Friday is just around the corner. We have Inter, who is going to be taking on Benfica at 10 p.m. tonight also, in as far as the Champions League quarterfinal games are concerned. And that is today's matches. Tomorrow's matches, in as far as the Europa League is concerned, the quarterfinal, Roma will be taking on Feyenoord, while Sevilla will be squaring it out with Manchester United. As of Manchester United at 10 p.m. Sporting CP will be taking on Juventus, as well as Union St. Gilios taking on Leverkusen. That is tomorrow, in as far as the Europa League quarterfinal is concerned. Europa Conference League quarterfinal, well, we have West Ham, who is going to be playing Gent at 10 p.m. Well, Florentina and Lech Poznan are going to be playing tomorrow. Be sure to tap into our website at the specific time. That is www.kbc.co.ke. We have an Arsenal fan who is trying to distract me from, this particular bulletin. We want to say us of Manchester United are going to square it out with Sevilla, and we're sure going to land on top. As Viva. On that note, we cross over to the other side, where Arsenal's main fan in this particular set, that is none other than Victor Olo, is going to be taking you through the papers this morning. I'm Regina Wanyara, and I wish you a pleasant day ahead.
Regina. Ni mchokozi.
Sawa tu. Sawa tu. But it's going to be an interesting weekend by this, starting from now until the end of the week. It's going to be an interesting bit. I just have a very simple question. What if?
Adi?
What if we win that league? Mutasema nini?
What do you mean?
Yeah,
Kiburi FC,
Arsenal
we
is
will
going to
always
win.
have something to say.
Arsenal is going to win.
We will not be short of what to say, because we know we are going to be winning.
Okay.
So you focus on the win.
Sawa.
Us will be focusing on what
happens?
to say.
All right. Whether we remain at number 19, Manchester United will not be ahead of Arsenal.
Did we say that
Tutakuwa number 19, you will be number 20.
We are not talking about Arsenal, Manchester taking over us. We're just saying the elephant is coming down the tree. Hello, have a great day ahead.
All right. Okay.
Wave again, Regina. Give him that wave. That nice.
Actually, this is for Chelsea fans. Hello.
But Chelsea is so blue.
Regina, huyu hapa anakuambia wave na support hiyo team, ama anakuambia tu wave.
No, you wave. I'll support you, Reggie.
He supports Reading. I think West Ham or something.
Bye-bye. Have a great week ahead.
All right. Thank you, Regina. Okay. Now, let's turn pages and talk about matters what we have on the front page of our local dailies. Let me start with the Star newspaper. U-turn by MPs spares big fish with graft cases. U-turn by MPs spares big fish with graft cases. Reason why? The team has rejected amendments to Anti-Corruption and Economic Crimes Act, and now to hold office until DPP decides they could tamper with witness evidence and witness. That is, there is a U-turn by MPs, now spares big fish with graft cases. Still on the front page, there is this case about Pastor Mackenzie. Good news doomsday cult unmasked with shocking details. You can take a look at that story on page 4 and 5. Lawmakers probe Ruto's 15 billion shillings fertilizer subsidy. MPs are demanding a forensic audit of the 15 billion shillings fertilizer subsidy program. The National Assembly Public Accounts Committee wants a comprehensive money trail of the billions that were recently allocated to the Ministry of Agriculture for the program. 28 counties are warned to watch out for flooding. That is according to the other man, who has also placed 28 counties on red alert for heavy rains this week. Meteorological Department Director David Gikungu said that there is a high possibility that of floods in lightning strikes in these counties this particular week. So let's be careful. 28 counties, of course, will experience heavy rains. The issue of the accidents that is now a big issue right now in our country is also taking a piece of this paper here, and now people are being asked to be careful. Drama Festival, students moves audience with spoken word as you like it. They say poetry, passion, declamation, words of love from the heart. It is now that time of the year again that the winners will be making it to Mombasa for the National Drama Festival for the year. Good news, Doomsday. Cult in Malindi unmasked with shocking accounts. The story is fleshed out there for you. It's a full-page story. They were, according to the people who were starving, according to the prophet, they were to, to go to heaven by starvation. And they were dying of drought, and their prophet told them to starve themselves to reach heaven sooner.
How now?
That is the question. How now? How do you reach heaven sooner? You starve to death.
My people suffer for lack of knowledge.
That is the good book. That's what the good book say. All right. Let's leave that to the police to do the investigation. All right. MP's U-turn spares graft suspect. The National Assembly Justice and Legal Affairs Committee has deleted the proposal in the statute law that is Miscellaneous Amendment Bill of 2022. You can take a look at that story as well. And finally, Azimio rejects talks, threatens to ditch dialogue. The opposition has insisted it will not be party to any parliamentary process. And now, Raila Odinga team say that they are that President William Ruto has weakened parliament, captured state institutions, and co-opted the judiciary to consolidate power. Hence, not suited to take a lead role in the talks. That is what I have on the Star newspaper. Doreen.
The Daily Nation, similar stories, I should say, but just quite, should I say, an interesting story or something we should need to be thinking about. But this in regards to issues of debt, where Treasury now seeks solace in new Eurobond as debt crisis deepen, and this perhaps will feature in the next financial year 2023-2024, where Treasury is mulling over getting a new Eurobond, and this is just to pay off that which will be maturing next year in June. This also coming at a time whereby we are still paying that Eurobond that we took in 2014, and perhaps what you saw in the month of April and what you might see in July, August, September, thereabout, could still be the same situation because of the payment of this Eurobond. And you've also heard that at that time the Deputy President saying that it was a time whereby even as a government they were stuck between payment of that debt and paying of salaries, hence the delay of salaries when it came to civil servants in the national government. So the biggest question now remains, do we really need to be borrowing this money, or should we just be living within our means as a country? But also what is coming out is that now we're talking about 9.2 trillion, that is our current debt as a country, which has been increasing over time since 2020. And in the event that we actually get this money, about 270 billion, that's what we're looking at in this borrowing of this new Eurobond, we are looking at perhaps increasing our debts to 10.4 trillion. At a time whereby we say that our debt needs not exceed 55% of a GDP, which stands at 13 trillion. So what really does this mean for you and I as a Kenyan? This is part of the conversation that we shall also be having later on as far as the economy is concerned. And just looking at where we are as a country in terms of debt, financing, budgeting, and the likes. But this looks like a big headache for our current president, Dr. Ruto. Away from that, Azimio rejects House-led bipartisan talks. Of course, this was mentioned yesterday by the Azimio leadership, and also this is just, I should say, hours after Majority Leader in the National Assembly, Kimani Ichung'wah, tabled that notice of motion that did structure the 7 aside from each coalition, and also put forth the agenda which was supposed to be discussed within 90 days. But what was said by Wiper leader Kalonzo Musyoka yesterday is that Azimio, or I should say the 7 aside from the Azimio side, were not involved in the structuring of this notice of motion, whereby the key key issue of agenda there was the IEBC, reconstituting of the IEBC selection panel. So that, amongst others, is part of the issues as to why they are withdrawing, or they've withdrawn from these talks, which are supposed to take the shape and format of the parliamentary format. But then they are saying that this needs to be extra parliamentary. Different stakeholders need to be brought on board. So we wait to see how this will look like, given the 7 members had already been selected, some agendas had already been put forth. Of course, they had other issues that they wanted to be canvassed, but the key main issues included matters of electoral reform. So now that they've rejected these talks, how does it look like? What's the way forward? As they mentioned, they'll be going back to the streets. So what does this portend for you and I as a Kenyan? Quite a number of questions being proffered there. And also lastly, still featuring on the front page of the Daily Nation is Governor's call for talks to avert Medic's strike. This is a strike that is supposed to be taking place today. And also what we know as of yesterday evening, the 12 counties which are supposed to have gone on strike because of delayed payments, and this is the Medic's. At least 6 of these counties had paid off the Medic. So we're looking at 6 counties that perhaps might just be going on strike today because of this delayed disbursements. And there's been a concern because, again, this is emanating from the national government, where governance, and this just was mentioned by the COG chair and the Kirinyaga County governor, that the last disbursement was done in December last year. So we're looking at 4 months of non-payment to the counties. A total of 125 billion is what they're seeking in this period of 4 months. So again, how will this hamper services in the counties as far as medicine, drugs is concerned? And just what framework do these governors have when it comes to payment of this medics? We wait to see how all this will turn out altogether, and whether or not indeed this, in fact, they're not calling it a strike, they're calling it a walkout up until they are paid. We wait to see how all that will turn out. Ram.
Yes. And of course, also on my end, I have with me a copy of the People Daily. Let's take a look at what is on the front page of this particular paper here. And why reform talks face major threat. That is on the front page of the People Daily. That's a splash there. Why reform talks face major threat. Of course, this is what has been featuring in almost all our dailies. And I'm looking at the Azimio boss here, Raila Odinga's allies, who accuse their Kenya Kwanza rivals of failing to consult before writing to the speaker about the start of the process. Former governor, that is Mwangi wa area, is to host Raila Odinga in Murang'a tomorrow. He said that, and I quote, that we have issued the notice for the meeting and we want to invite as many people as possible so that we can have a conversation on the issues affecting the common person. That end of quote. That is according to Mwangi wa area. And of course, let me head over into this particular paper here. As highlighted before, Raila allies reject Kenya Kwanza Pale approach, where the talks are at risk of aborting, as the Azimio team says no to having a parliamentary process. And on this other side here, protests are an obstacle to progress. This is according to the President William Ruto, who says that he is working hard to create a conducive environment for businesses to thrive. The president has appeared to reach out to opposition leader Raila Odinga to shun the anti-government protests, saying that they are derailing the government's efforts to not only revamp the economy, but also address the high cost of living in the country. Let's talk about the high cost of living, shall we? Now, concerning the high cost of living, particularly the price of maize, that is the price of maize flour, remained the same in most parts of the country yesterday, despite President William Ruto's assurance that it had dropped to 150 shillings yesterday, down from 230 shillings. Now, Kenyans await cheaper flour after assurance by the president. That is also featured in this particular paper. And finally, let's move on to the last story that I'm highlighting this morning on the People Daily, where we have Kenyans taxed 365 million in unused energy annually. Interesting here, Kenyan taxpayers pay approximately 365 million Kenya shillings annually for power produced but not consumed. That is yet another debate that is being highlighted there. The revelation came as the Senate Energy Committee, probing the high cost of electricity, sought answers from the Triumph owner of Remol plant with a capacity to produce 84 megawatts. And the general manager, that is Siva Shankar Kota, told the Energy Committee that although they produce enough energy and enough energy or enough power as per their capacity, the Kenya Power and Lighting Company only requests them to dispatch that is a little bit of that particular power, a smaller portion of that. Yesterday, the Nyeri senator, that is Senator Wahome Wamatiga, led Energy Committee to hear that that Triumph entered into a contract with the KPLC, where the latter is supposed to pay, catch this, a total of $300 per kilowatt. That is in Kenyan shillings 40,333 Kenyan shillings per kilowatt per hour. That is translating to approximately 365 million Kenyan shillings per year. Now, this revelation has made the Senate team to probe the high cost of electricity in the country, something that needs a conversation. Well, that is what is featured on the People Daily.
Right.
Victor.
Thank you so much. And quickly on to the Standard on the front page, politics of ICC, why it may just all be hot air. Politicians and the police boss have been issuing threats of going to the International Criminal Court at The Hague, but given the events surrounding the Azimio protest, it may not pass the muster the court. We have got President William Ruto, Rigathi Gachagua, and of course Raila Odinga. Azimio, no talks unless Team X expanded. You can take a look at that story, fully fleshed out there for you on page 6. Does Kenya Kwanza, Azimio cry for outside help hold water? Opposition wants ICC to take action against IG over attacks on Azimio supporters during demos, and government also wrote to the international and diplomatic missions to impose sanctions on Raila. Okay, ICC talks are premature, according to legal experts. Azimio claim that there are rogue police targeting protesters, but lawyers have said that brutality claims can be dealt with locally, not at the ICC. Kenya Kwanza set space for talks before talks as Azimio plays tough. Now, as National Assembly Majority Leader Kimani Ichung'wah seeks venue for setting ground rules, while Azimio accuses Ruto of ignoring issues, quote-unquote, agreed upon with the emissaries he sent to them. And finally, senators want CAS to be grilled by committees, not the whole House. And the interiors, according to the opposition lawmakers, they want changes to the standing orders made through back door. And here on matters Unga, traders rush to clear maize flour stocks as imports land. They want to sell the old stock before discounted flour hits the market. A spot check reveals that main brands of a 2 kg packet retailing at around 200 to 250 shillings. And that is what we had on People and did I say People in Politics? No. In the headlines, what we had on local newspapers. All right, let's take a break. Jim K continue shortly after this. Good morning.
Ni moja ya nguzo za 5 za Uislamu na ni muhimu sana kwa kila mmoja azingatie kutilia maanani kufunga katika mwezi huu mtukufu wa Ramadhani.
Katika sisi hujibidiisha ili tuweze kuchuma thawabu ambazo tunaweza kujipatia ndani ya mwezi wa Ramadhani.
Leave, Julia, now!
No! What if I am a young girl or not? You and I are only friends.
I really should go now. Besides, I think we should settle everything. Set your ego aside.
How much money, I wonder, will Irazabal and Olegario Montoya be willing to pay?
With each passing day, Olegario's stay is getting shorter and shorter in this small world.
I'll make them pay for all the times they've humiliated me, and I will leave them out on the street.
Hey, boss, what's wrong? What just happened?
What was that? Hey, who is that?
Did he fall? Mr. Bai! Wake up, Mr. Bai!
Hey! Help him sit up.
Bai.
Help him sit up.
Where are you going?
Oh, Liam, I have to go to the hospital.
To see Harvey, right? I'll give you a ride. Come on.
It's fine. I can go myself.
We're losers in a game of love, right?
I don't know whether I am or not now.
But you treated me like your feelings garbage can.
Now, in an economy where every shilling matters, as we speak, we're looking at a debt of 9.2 trillion against a GDP of 13 trillion. Even as we talk about that, we are mulling over borrowing a bit more, going by what we have today and what we've covered, is that 270 billion is perhaps what we might just be getting in terms of Eurobond in the next financial year. What does this portend for you and I as a Kenyan looking at this increased debts? Should we perhaps just stop all this altogether and live within our means, perhaps just consume what you can be able to manage? This and so much more as far as our economy is concerned. Taxation, financing, budgeting, and cost of living forms center of our discussion for the next 40 minutes. For the same, I have created FaceTime with Dr. Maina Kamau, who has an array of experience in the issues that we're about to discuss, but also just describing him as a business consultant. Daktari, karibu sana to the program.
Thank you very much, Doreen.
And thank you so much for your time.
You're welcome.
Now, let me just broach this discussion from where we are as far as debt is concerned.
Yes.
This debt has been increasing over time since 2020.
Yes.
We were at 6.6 trillion in 2020,
Yes.
7.7 in 2021, 8.6 in 2022.
Yes.
Now we are looking at 9.2 trillion, that is our debt, against a debt ceiling of 10 trillion.
Yes.
Whilst some quarters would say that you really can't quite do much if you don't borrow. And we oftentimes like to juxtapose this or compare with developed countries that they too borrow. But from where you sit with your wide experience, what really has gotten us to this point? What would you attribute this continuous increase of debt for the past 3 years to?
Thank you very much, Doreen, and much appreciation for hosting me this morning. The reason why we are borrowing is because there are two strategies to managing a debt. There's a debt restructuring and debt refinancing. So basically what we are doing is debt refinancing, because you will see that we are borrowing a loan to repay an existing loan.
Exactly.
Now the problem that we are having, as opposed to when we were borrowing in previous years, we are borrowing at a more, that time we were borrowing at a more favorable interest rates, because the credit rating of Kenya as a country was favorable. Remember, by the time the previous government was taking over, even the IMF and the Bretton Woods institutions, they were looking for the Kenyan president to come and borrow. But right now, the current president is being chased to go and repay the loans.
That which you borrow, now go pay it.
Yes, go and pay it. So that time we were receiving loans at a very favorable interest rates. Right now, when we are refinancing, we are doing that at a very exponential and punitive interest rates. So it is not a very good situation that we find ourselves in, that we are borrowing to repay an existing loan. It's like digging another hole so that you can get some soil to fill an existing hole.
More like borrowing from Peter to pay Paul?
Yes, borrowing from Peter to pay Paul. But this time around at a very high interest rate.
All right, I hear you.
Yes, yes.
So now when you say that and you just look at what we've actually what is making headlines of the dailies today, that in the next financial year we're looking at perhaps getting another Eurobond. 270 billion, which is for a loan that will mature next year in June. And looking at the current situation that we are in right now. So then one would ask, why would we be thinking about getting another loan, whereas we have other loans that you're paying? Because whatever we are even paying right now in April, and perhaps it's also going to be maturing in September, is basically the Eurobond that we got in 2014. Almost 8 years later. Then do we need to just stay within the confines of what we can afford as a country, as opposed to just continuing to pick and borrow from almost everywhere?
Right now we don't have a choice. But
we don't have a choice but just to borrow.
We just have to borrow. We just have to borrow, because if we delay borrowing and we say we borrow when the worst has come, that time we will borrow even at higher interest rates. Because what would mean is if when we are supposed to repay the loan, we don't have the capacity to do so, and we default on paying that sovereign loan, then it will be very catastrophic to the image and the perception of the foreigners that have on Kenya. And we will continue having a weakening credit rating as a country. So this time around, the credit rating for Kenya, it is not as good, but it can get worse. So it's better we borrow at this rate, at this time, because if we continue to wait and the situation is not getting better, then we might get it rough at that time. It's like even the issue that...
It's quite interesting that you're saying it's actually okay for us to continue borrowing, because if we don't, we might just be getting in the red already.
Yes, for sure. It's like what the president said, that he doesn't want to borrow to pay salaries. But now the president probably would borrow at a rate of 10% if he were to borrow. But that person who has not been paid, that Wanjiko, is going to the bank or even to the Shylock to borrow at a very high interest rates, probably even 20%. That percent, some Shylock they lend at an annual rate of even 100%. So it would even be better if now the country can borrow at a higher, at a lower interest rates, maybe 10% as a country, as opposed to the government not borrowing and allowing Wanjiko to go and borrow. Because if you have not been paid your salary, you will have to look for money.
I hear you, but again, just I'm really having tough time and conflicts in my head with this, because if you're saying that indeed we just have to borrow, because if we don't do now, in the later years, we'll just be forced to, and at a higher interest. IMF has already classified Kenya from a debt risk to a high risk when it comes to debt. And here you're saying that we need to just borrow nonetheless. What does this portend?
Because we are already in a very precarious situation. So if we had not started to borrow, then we would say let us not borrow. But already
we already begun.
We are already into it.
Okay.
And we have loans that are becoming, there are loans that we are supposed to pay, as you have said, by June next year.
Yeah.
We are supposed to pay a Eurobond of 250 billion. So if we don't have money by then and we default, what I'm trying to avoid is the issue of defaulting. Because when you default... The
Zambia-Ghana way?
The Zambia-Ghana way. Because when you default, it's like now you get barred from and banned from accessing international markets.
Okay.
So right now we have access to international market. Let's borrow so that we don't slip to those dangerous zones. Because when you default, we slip to dangerous zones and will not be able to...
We can't get access to international markets, as you say.
Yes.
But I mean, again, one would argue, Daktari, that these things are planned and budgeted for. For instance, when you took the Eurobond in 2014, we knew it would mature at this point in time. It's 8-9 years later. We knew very well. Now, just a few weeks back, in the beginning of this month, the Deputy President did say that they are conflicted as a government between paying that debt and paying of salaries. And since we got independence for the past 60 years, this is the first time we've had in national government where civil service is actually complaining of delayed payments. Of course, we'll come to county governments. That has been a ripple story over time. We'll come to that in a short while. But yes, he did say that they're even in a difficult time. Yet we plan for this. We know that at this point, it will mature. We need to pay for it. So then if we are borrowing for that, and it gets to that point and you're conflicted, does it mean that we're not planning well? Or is it that we're collecting less as a country? Just what is the dynamics? What goes into this? Because, I mean, a classical example is like, when you borrow from an institution X, you know that in the next 6 years, it's going to mature. You pay slowly. You
pay slowly.
So what is this?
Actually, when the Deputy President says that we are conflicted between paying salaries and paying the debt, I think it is not very much in order because we don't have a choice about which one comes first. Always the debt has to come first. The first charge to the consolidated fund account is the debts. Actually, when we are signing those contracts about Eurobond or even Treasury bond, is the condition is that you will pay us as the first that's
the first priority.
That's the first priority. So the salaries come second. So there is no way salary can come first. before our debts. So when now the Deputy President we says that we are having that challenge, it is for sure, and there's a problem because the government should have practiced more prudent financial management because as you are saying, it is a debt that we knew it would mature at that particular time. For instance, in March this year, we paid a loan of about 150 billion. And you know, when we were passing the budget for last year, that cost of repaying the loan was captured there, was factored in there. We did a budget of 3.3 trillion. Out of that budget of 3.3 trillion, 2.2 trillion was for recurrent expenditure. And this recurrent expenditure includes the payment of salaries, repairs and maintenance, buying of office supplies and paying for other services, and also repayment of the debt. Servicing of the debt is included.
So it was factored in.
It was factored in.
We knew that's going to feature in there.
We knew that was going to, the debt was to be paid at some point. So the 2.2 trillion was there. Even the money that we have not been able to send to the county government, we had budgeted for 400 billion. 400 billion was to be sent to the county government. Because out of the 3.3 trillion, 2.2 was recurrent expenditure.
Is it 400 or 370 billion?
407, actually. 407.
Is it 407 or 370? You're talking about the previous financial year?
The previous financial year. Sometimes maybe it depends when you obtain the figures, but perhaps they might change according maybe to the interest rates or the exchange rates. But according to the budget, 3.3 trillion. 2.2 was for recurrent expenditure. About 700 billion was to go for capital expenditure in terms of infrastructure and all that. Then about 400 billion was to go to the devolved government. And actually now that we owe, the national government owe the devolved or the county government a sum of about 125 billion, the national government is in contravention with the constitution. Because the constitution says in the event that the national government is not able to get the revenue that it had anticipated or envisioned in the budget, then the kitty that is supposed to go to the county government should not be compromised, should be paid. Because, you know, national county governments, they are recipients. They are not the ones who are controlling the collection of revenue.
How practical is that, Dr. You've just said that yes, it's enshrined in the constitution. You know that's 15% of also what's gotten that's supposed to be going to the counties. But you've just said that in the event the national government is not able to raise that, they still have to adhere to what the law says. But isn't that conflicting? Because if you can't be able to raise X, how am I sending it to you? How then do you do that? Because that has been the cry of national government. There's a cash crunch in government. They haven't been able to raise enough as they need to, much as KRA, or you know, just the past few weeks they did say that they are reaching their targets, but over time we've had that there's a bit of that crunch, and so that's why there's been later delayed disbursements in the counties.
You know that is low, and once we enter into a contract and we say, I will be, maybe you have sold me your car, and I promise that I will be paying you 100,000 per month because you have sold to me on credit. That's a contract, and it is supported by law. So a contract is a contract. The law requires the government to do that because, and the problem is like now, for instance, right now, the BPS, the budget policy statement for the budget policy statement for the budget which is coming to be read in June this year is anticipating that we will collect 2.8 trillion shillings in terms of taxes. But right now, we are struggling even with 2.1 trillion, because as at last month, 30th of March this year, we had collected about 1.4 trillion out of the expected 2.1 trillion. So that means we have about 700 billion to collect within a period of 3 months, which is almost impossible. So right now, 2.1 has been very difficult to attain. What about the one that we are putting for next year at a 2.8?
We'll come to that, because again, there's been a lot of question with regards to expanding the tax brackets and all that. So maybe we'll see how that might aid in this collection of, actually it's 2.7 trillion that the president did say. Nonetheless, just talk to me about the mechanisms you can employ as a state, because you're saying something very important, that all these things are planned for, and you've really also enumerated for us the figures as to how it has been, even when you look at the 2022-2023 financial year. But we are still here in this quagmire whereby it gets to that point of repayment, it gets to that point of payment, and we are conflicted. We are actually choosing, should I do X or Y? Yet we plan. And if we do not do that planning properly, then in September, where we found ourselves in April, this year might just be the same kind of circumstance, because you need to repay again one of those debts that we got. So what mechanisms can perhaps the state employ in terms of planning, preparation, and the likes?
Number one is debt restructuring. And debt restructuring is when you go to your lender and you tell him that I had anticipated to repay this loan within 10 years, but because of the prevailing economic situation, I would propose that we double that repayment period from 10 years to 20 years. What that means, if I was paying 1 million per month, I was repaying the debt at a rate of maybe 1 million per month, then if I double the repayment period, it would mean I will be paying 500,000 per month. So the government can employ such a strategy.
So you get a moratorium?
Not a moratorium, because a moratorium would be like you are being given some grace period before you start paying. This one is just extension of the debt repayment period. The other issue, you can still go and bargain about the interest rates that your lender was charging you. If the lender was charging you 10%, you can go and say, if you continue charging me 10%, I will never be able to repay this loan.
But actually,
the
president has said that debt restructuring is not the route that we will be taking as a country. We will pay our debts. And this is a solution that you're giving to the kind of problem that we are having.
Because for me, I'm a strong believer that desperate time calls for desperate measures. Because I'm very concerned that if we ever default on the loans, then all these options that we think we have, they will just disappear. Even the issue of bargaining or negotiating for debt restructuring. Like now we are doing debt refinancing, and we are doing it at a very high cost. Usually debt refinancing, the way it should be done is when probably had obtained a mortgage of about 10 million from a certain bank, let's say Bank A, at an interest rate of 14%. Myself, maybe a mortgage of 10 million at an interest rate of 14%. So at some point after maybe 1 year or 2 years, the interest rate goes down. So I go to Bank B, which is willing to give me a loan at an interest rate of 12%. Okay. So I say, I tell Bank B, buy for me that loan that I have with Bank A. Clear, because that is a very more it's a more expensive loan that I'm paying 14%, and I be left with you to be paying you 12%. So that's the concept of debt refinancing. Okay. But now we are doing debt refinancing the other way around. You see, probably we are at 12% interest rate per year. Yes. But because we need to borrow to repay this debt that is maturing, we are reborrowing at a higher rate, 15%.
And because we have no choice, ideally.
Because we have no choice. And we are, every other time, we are nearing the red line. We are nearing the red line. So the more we think that we have options, which we don't have, and lose the opportunity to borrow some more before we lose that opportunity.
Yes. I want us to move to the next matter of taxation, but before then, now that you said we are nearing the red line, and I'm thinking in my head that we are currently standing at 9.2 trillion in terms of our debt. Yes. And if whatever is being discussed as far as getting another Eurobond is concerned, and if the figure indeed is as supposed to be the 270 billion, which is supposed to be paid next year, June, is anything to go by, that simply means that it will increase our debt to 10.4 trillion. Yes. From what we know is that our debt needs not exceed 55% of our GDP, which currently stands at 13 trillion. So when you look at these figures and where we stand, are we nearing towards what is the threshold, and what does this mean for our economy?
Wonderful. Actually, as it is already past that figure. Okay. We are at around 60%.
Also, you're past 55% already?
Yeah, we are past 55%. We are about 60%. So it has already surpassed that. And it is
so
not...
we are literally on the red, as you said?
No, not really.
Quite.
No, not really, because there are countries that even have we call it debt to GDP ratio, that is above 100%. People who have borrowed more than their GDP. Okay. A country like Japan, we have even US. But now the main concern or the main determinant whether the country is in red when it comes to the issue of whether they have the ability to repay the loan is another ratio called tax revenue versus GDP. Okay. Tax revenue versus GDP. Okay. The current tax revenue says, like now, the amount that we collected or we were anticipating to collect this current year, that is June 2022 to June 2023, is 2.2 trillion. So if you say 2.2 trillion divided by GDP, which is 13 trillion, we get about 14%. Okay. And some countries like South Africa, they are at 23%.
So they've surpassed.
They are collecting, they are doing better in terms of revenue collection than we are. So if we are able to move from 2.2 trillion and collect maybe 5 trillion, because that basically would mean we have come from 14% to about 25%, then we would have a better ability to repay our loans. So the issue, and that's why the president keeps pushing for people to pay taxes. Okay. So that once we are able to collect more revenue, then our ability to repay the debt gets better. So it's not the issue of GDP versus the debt or debt versus the GDP. It is actually the issue of revenue collection, our ability to collect revenue vis-a-vis our GDP.
So that simply means you can borrow, but if your ability to collect revenue is good enough, it's equally okay.
It's equally okay.
That's what you're saying.
Yes, because Doreen, we can even have a budget. We can even have a GDP of 20 trillion. GDP of 20 trillion, but we are collecting zero taxes For instance, even if the GDP goes how high and the amount of taxes we are collecting is still low,
yes,
then we will not have the ability to borrow, because we don't borrow on the strength of the GDP. We borrow on the strength of the revenue that we're able to collect.
Okay, I hear you. I want us to take a very quick breather, Daktari. When we come back now, we look at that aspect of collection and the whole issue of taxes. This regime has been very, very vocal about expanding the tax bracket. We've even at some point talked about M-Pesa transactions, a form of tax bracket. SMEs, for instance, and onboarding 18 years and above into that tax bracket. So how will this help in that collection of taxes? Like at the same time, also talked about increasing our revenue collection from 2.1 to 2.7, as we say, and in the next 4 years again increasing, doubling that to about 4 trillion. So discuss that, and again also, as far as the economy is concerned, cost of living, we can never miss to talk about that as well. We talk about all that after this breather. Clearly, as you've had, quite a lot to discuss after this break as far as economy, financing, taxation is concerned. So stay with us.
Say to make it right, 'cause I need your arms around me every night. To me your world.
Umepata DNA confirmation and apparently it's him. He's dead, man.
I'm so sorry.
Prison wetu HPT ni brother Imran.
Brother wako ni terrorist.
Kama unaenda kuniseti, malizane tu na wewe hapa.
Naumwa, Katana, naumwa.
Relax, itakuwa sawa.
Kama kweli nakupenda, sifai kukuficha chochote, sio?
Sasa mbona unataka tufanye kazi yenye hatuwezi fanya?
Something big is on the horizon and we need to get ahead of it.
The F5 jets will be airborne in 10 minutes.
Exactly 1 minute past the top of the hour, we continue our pace with our conversation looking at matters of economy, taxation, budgeting and spending. Basically just the state of economy and where we are as a country. And now we continue this conversation, still holding court with Dr. Maina Kamau, who is a business consultant. Daktari, again, thank you so much for your time into this conversation. And let's just make progress and move from debt a bit and talk about taxation.
Yes.
And we had said earlier that from what we've had in terms of history, and even for the previous financial year, 2.1 trillion is what we've collected and what the threshold was. Now we're looking at increasing that to 2.7 trillion in this financial year. And in the next 5 years, the president did say that we want to double that to about 4.14 trillion thereabout. And so then this regime has been very vocal about expanding the tax bracket. And there's a specific sector I want us to touch on just for a bit. This was the M-Pesa transaction, to a point where KRA was actually mulling over looking into those transactions and receipts and see how best we can perhaps use that as an avenue to expand our tax brackets. So what I really want to get from you is that a good idea? Because one would argue that not all transactions are business related. So then how would you want to think about taxing this form of transactions as a way of increasing and expanding the tax bracket?
Thank you very much, Doreen. When the government says that it is targeting M-Pesa transactions, it is not necessarily saying that whatever the money that goes through your M-Pesa statement is the one that will be taxed.
Yeah, please clarify.
Yes, this is because taxes are levied on profits, not on the sales. For instance, if I have a hardware and my hardware is able to sell goods worth 100,000 per month, that it is, I will not pay taxes on the 100,000. I will be allowed to say when I sold goods worth 100,000, I deduct purchases. Probably I had bought those goods at 50,000. Then I will have paid. I'm left with 50,000. Then I say I paid my workers, my employees, for instance, another 30,000. After I deduct everything, I'm left with 20,000 as my profit. Now that's what I will pay taxes on. And the corporate tax rate in Kenya is 30%. So I will pay 30% of 20,000. And that's about 6,000. So in the event that the government sends us my bank statement or even the M-Pesa statement, I will just need to demonstrate that whatever that went through that M-Pesa statement, it is not profit. It is basically items that I was selling. So
burden lies with who? That you have to demonstrate this one?
Actually, it's a good question, because I believe you have ever had a person who is been asked by KRA to pay taxes of about 100 million. What KRA does is if they feel that you are evading taxes, and then they get hold of your bank statements and financial information, whatever income that they see coming, they find out that came through your bank accounts or M-Pesa statements for a period of 1 year, they assume that is profit. They assume it is profit. Now it is the burden lies on you to prove to them that this actually was not profit. These were just sales. And the way now you demonstrate to them is you show them your records of purchases. You show them the records of expenses. If you are paying rent, you need to show them that I did pay rent for my premises, my business premises. I actually paid salaries to my employees. So the burden of proof is on the business person.
Basically on you as a person, as an individual, or the business altogether. Now when you look at that, does it indicate to you that perhaps there are some areas where we hadn't thought about in terms of increasing the tax bracket? Because I mean, when you look at M-Pesa transactions, for instance, who would have thought that this could actually be an avenue that would have been brought on board in terms of increasing the tax bracket, as opposed to already increasing taxation to the demographic which is already taxed? Does it indicate that maybe there are some areas where we need to also be thinking over in terms of expanding our tax bracket, perhaps just to increase our revenue?
Yes, for sure. And there was a trending issue last year when the taxman had actually given had suggested that they are going to audit people's lifestyle. That whatever you are posting on social media, they will use that to determine whether you are paying the correct taxes or not. For instance, you post photos on social media. You are going to Dubai, you are going to Mombasa, but when they come to look for your tax payment record, it is zero. So basically the KRA is actually being aggressive, which is a good thing, because you find people driving big cars, Prados, but when you look at their tax payment history, it is zero. So the M-Pesa statements, whether the KRA decides to be more serious in terms of censoring people, in terms of what you are posting on social media, the government has to ensure it increases the tax base and increase the people that are paying taxes in this country, because we are a population of about 55 million. And out of that population, Safaricom alone, it has about 30 million subscribers. These are people who have registered for lines with Safaricom. But for you to register with Safaricom, you need to have a KRA pin.
Yes.
And no, not necessarily a KRA pin. You need to have an ID.
Yes.
So any person who has an ID should also be registered with KRA as a taxpayer.
So basically backing the onboarding of 18-year-olds and above into the tax bracket.
Actually, it is law. It is not new law. Law says...
So then you have a KRA pin and then you pay tax and you're not doing anything. Just explain to me, how does that work?
Yes. Whenever you get to 18 years, there are two documents that you are required by the state to acquire. One is the national ID, and number two is the KRA pin. Even if you are a student, you need to get the KRA pin. But what you will be doing, in the event that you are not generating any income, then you file nil return at the end of the year. And if you don't file that nil return, again there are penalties. You are charged 2,000 for failing to file nil return. So it is a requirement. Now the president the other day was challenging KRA and was asking KRA if a private entity like Safaricom has been able to register 30 million subscribers and KRA has only been able to register 7 million, and the KRA has got the state power, has got the resources. So, and out of the 7 million Kenyans who have been registered by KRA as taxpayers, only about 3 million are paying taxes. The rest 4 million are either not paying or they are filing nil return. So the 3 million are the ones that you will hear they say they are overtaxed, and it is true.
3 million out of a 55 million population.
Out of 55 million population. You might say that the people who are in the working age bracket is about 24 million, but again 3 out of 24 million, it is on the lower side.
Because the rest are on the other side, SMEs, which we'll talk about also that. But again, I felt that was important to clarify, because the time we have this statement of onboarding anyone who's 18 years and above to the tax bracket, all of us just thought, okay, so what is this person doing that they have to pay taxes? But then now you're just telling us that indeed it's actually a requirement to get these two documents. So at the point where you're not getting any income of any sort, then you file nil returns. So then at the point where you're not filing nil returns, is now when you get a penalty. Makes a lot of sense. Now, out of this population of 24 million, only 3 million actually get to pay their taxes. And there's also been quite the conversation there on how we can get still on board those in the small, medium enterprises, micro, small and medium enterprises into the tax bracket. And there's also been a concern when it comes to payment of the fees, the levies and all these charges. In fact, I remember when the governor of Nairobi was contesting for this seat as a candidate, then he did say that one of his key agendas will be to collapse all these documents into one, because this SME person who's, as most would say, they're not making quite a lot, you still want them to pay for all these levies and fees and charges and the likes, and they will still want, and you still want to get them into the tax bracket and pay taxes. So then whatever they are making, all of it goes into this small, or these payments here and there. How do we collapse all this into one? How do we get this sector? Because it's quite a lot. You can imagine out of 24, only 3 million being taxed. It just shows you the deficit, the 21 can be in a position to pay taxes, but they are not, because something is not structured correctly. How do we consolidate all this, Dr.
I think it is true. There are two things that are very certain in life. That is death and paying of taxes. And payment of taxes should not be a preserve of those people who have the ability to pay. Because Kenya, we have a tax system that is called the progressive tax system, that you are charged more as you earn more. And that's why even in terms of pay as you earn, the people who have a salary of less than 24,000 per month, they are not taxed anything.
Is that true?
Yes, they are not taxed anything. And how that works is that every Kenyan is given a tax relief by the government of 2,400. A tax relief of 2,400. So any income that is between 0 and 24,000, it is taxed at a rate of 10%.
So it's still taxed?
It is taxed, but again, you are given a relief.
So
like
the whole point is that yes, it's taxed, but slightly lower.
It's lower than the relief.
Okay.
It's lower than the relief. So the next batch from 24,000 to 32,000, it is taxed at 15%. Then the other one at 20%. The more you earn, the more the tax rate continues to increase. So in terms of the SME people, there's a tax that was introduced by the government about 2 years ago. It is called the turnover tax. Turnover tax just require that person who has a shop or who operates a business in the village or here in Nairobi in urban areas, but is under the bracket of SMEs, he is required to pay only 1% of the total sales as taxes. So this person, if this person has sold sales of about 100,000 in a month, the same case for a hardware, this person is only required to pay 1% to the government, which is 1,000. So
of all the sales that they have
of all the sales. But now this one, the main difference between turnover tax and the normal tax that we are all conversant with, that is called the income tax, is the income tax is charged at a rate of 30% for a corporate, for someone who is trading under a limited liability form of a business. But now that one, you are required and allowed to, if you have sales of about 100,000, you deduct all your expenses, and as we had said before, probably you are left with about 20,000. Then that 20,000 as profit is the one that you are charged corporate tax at a rate of 30%. But since the government is aware that some people may not be able to employ an accountant, or for the government to make it easier for SME people, they just say, we will not subject you to a lot of calculations. You just keep your sales record. If it is 100,000, just give us 1%
of that.
Of that.
Okay.
But now you see, even after the government has come with such a creative and innovative idea, most SMEs, they're still not paying.
Why are they still not paying? From where you sit, why could this be the case? And as you respond to that, perhaps you can tie it down with the issues of payment of fees, payment of levies, because good number of them will decry, yes, it's okay, 1% in terms of what I've made. So that's the turnover tax. But on the side, they will say, I still pay this levy, I still pay this charge, I still pay this fee. And also that is part of what has hampered, even you look at young people from getting into business, because some of them will say, by the time I'm done with paying all these things, I'm left with no capital to even start this business.
I'm not so sure whether that's a very good excuse for a business person, because at the end of the day, any levy that you pay to the government, any fee that you pay to the government, you consolidate it and consider it when you are when you are coming up with the selling price of your products. For instance, if I sell furniture, and the cost of doing maybe a particular table comes to about 5,000, but then the government requires me to charge 16% of the value of that furniture. So the 16%, it is not my business that will pay. When I'm putting the selling price for that furniture, I will incorporate the taxes that I'm supposed to pay, the fees that I'm supposed to pay, and everything I pass it to my customer, to the end consumer. So the businesses have no excuse, because it is not businesses that pay taxes, it is the consumer, the end user that pays taxes.
Okay, so that's no excuse, as you say.
But maybe what they do, because they also understand that if they continue to push all the taxes to the end user, their products will become expensive. So they decide not to incorporate or factor those taxes to when they are coming up with the price for their product, so that the pricing become a bit more competitive. But at the end of the day, when they are protecting their end user, they end up contravening the law.
I hear you. And I'm just glad that the producers added us another extra 15 minutes. Good job. But as we talk about that taxation, there's also another matter I want us to converse around. The CGT, capital gain tax, increased from 5 to 15%. And there has been, again, quite the conversation when it comes to investments. To what end does this affect investment, and what is the ripple effect in the economy with this increase?
Yes, that's for sure. The Kenyan system, we have been somehow aggressive in terms of increasing the taxes in some areas. Like now, the CGT from the last financial bill that was passed, it was increased from a rate of 5% to a rate of 15%. What that means is
10% extra.
10% extra. What that means is that if I buy a piece of land at a cost of about 1 million, and maybe within 2 years, 3 years, I sell it at 2 million. So the extra gain, that is 2 million minus 1 million, is 1 million. That 1 million, I should pay 15% of it to the government as a capital gain tax. But now the government is also a bit reasonable, because if I say I bought 1 million, I had bought that piece of land 1 million, but again I incurred some advertising cost, marketing cost for me to be able to sell it. And I say maybe, so any other expenses that you incurred in the process of selling that particular property will be factored before you calculate the CTG, the capital gain tax at a rate of 15%.
But doesn't this take a toll on investors and investment? And why I ask that, Daktari, is because again also, I believe it was the IMF that did say in the next few years, countries like Angola and Ethiopia might just bypass Kenyans as far as investment is concerned. And the further went to say that 69 states in the European bloc are mulling over investments in different parts of the African country, except Kenya, and Tanzania is one of them. So when you look at some of this increase in terms of taxation, good enough from where you see it. But when you look at investment option, even from outside, doesn't it take a toll on investors and investors coming on board? And to what end does that affect our economy if you don't have investors coming on board?
That's for sure, because actually if we look at what is happening at NSC, about a year ago, the total market capitation at the NSC was about 2.77 trillion, but right now it is below 1.5 trillion. And the reason that has happened, the value of the shares that are trading at NSC have declined, the value of shares, with more than 1 trillion. And the reason that has happened is because we have experienced something called, a capital flight, that foreigners all of a sudden they are very skeptical in investing here in Kenya, because what that means is that an investor might come here and invest in securities in Nairobi Securities Exchange, and is promised to be paid probably about 10%, a rate of return of 10%. But now, if he's promised a rate of return of 10%, but now it happens that the value of the Kenyan currency depreciates against the dollar by about 15%, then this person, even if he's going to get a rate of return of 10%, it will already been eroded by the loss in value of the Kenyan currency. So that person will be suffering losses. And by that time, you have not incorporated the inflation rate in Kenya. So this foreign investor has come and is promised a 10% rate of return. And that is a nominal rate of return that has not been adjusted for inflation. So now you bring the inflation of 7%, you bring the issue of weakening of the Kenyan currency against the dollar, you give it maybe 10%. So the value of his investment will have lost value by 7 plus 10, 17%, vis-a-vis what he's gaining 10%.
So the projection by IMF could just be true if this is the ongoing trend. And even right now as we speak, the Kenyan shilling has really depreciated against the dollar. In fact, this is the first time in history where we're experiencing this magnitude, 132 to 140 against the dollar. The first time we had this was in 2011, but that sort of picked up a bit. But now, right now, look at where we are. In fact, we're even thinking about, can you perhaps go the Chinese yuan, like how countries like Zambia, Ghana, Nigeria, and Russia are doing if this is the case scenario?
And actually that's a blessing in disguise, that the BRICS country, that is Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa, they have decided not to use dollar as a currency when they are doing business amongst themselves. What that will mean is that the value of the dollar will decline. So
it's a blessing in disguise.
It's a blessing in disguise.
When you look at it,
actually, if many countries can dump the use of dollar as a currency, what will that mean is that the value of the dollar will come down. And right now, as you have said, it is exchanging at about 132 shillings, Kenya shillings per $1. It can come down even to 100 shillings per dollar, because the value of a currency is determined by the demand it has in the international market. So if the dollar demand in the international market reduces, then even the value of the dollar will reduce. So we, as the country that are heavily indebted, are the ones that are likely to gain because of the loss in the value of the dollar. But many investors, the ones that have invested heavily in dollars, in the dollar currency, will suffer huge losses. So they might try as much as possible to prevent that from happening.
Now that you're saying that for those investors who've invested, they might just suffer huge losses, does that explain why we've been seeing companies, in fact, especially international companies, exiting the market? Classical case when you had Hilton perhaps do that. There's another company around in industrial area, the name eludes me a bit. We had De La Rue, which has been the printing firm for years in this country, and when they lost that KRA tax, they just opted, you know what? It's not going to be any formidable for us to continue staying in this country to do business.
That's for sure. That's for sure.
So that explains. Okay.
Yes, that explains that explains that. And if the government now can try to create a conducive environment for those foreign countries to come and build factories here, and even give them tax exemptions. I know we have something EPZ, export processing zones, and there is something that also the government is considering to put up, special economic zones, where we will invite, and that's where we will invite foreign investors to come and put production factories here in Kenya, and that's how actually countries like China grew. Because China has grown to where it is, almost the world superpower, within a period of 40 years, from 1978 to where we are. What happened is that the China president by then visited the US and actually visited Europe. He was doing benchmarking. And then he realized, if I can convince these big factories, these big companies in US, in Europe, to come and establish their factories here in China and give them tax exemptions, one thing they will do, they will employ our Chinese citizens, and at the end of the day, they will even ensure that goods and services are more available here in China, and they continued to create more incentives for foreigners to come and invest there, and the rest is history. The rest is history.
You know, you just say that, and I'm realizing there's quite a lot to discuss around that particular issue, but I'll not go into there because of the time constraints. Because I also want us to look at the cost of living and something that you said, production factories, which orients my next question as far as that cost of living is concerned. And the reason why I'm touching on that production is because when you look at that cost of living in that aspect, we had the whole idea of the CS Agriculture, Mithika Linturi, going to Zambia. I know the matter is in court. We won't discuss the merits and the demerits of it, because Farmers Party did take the ministry to court because of the whole idea of going to Zambia and getting to plant maize or lease farms in that regard. But what I just want to get from you as someone who's in the economy sector, I know that you touch on production, so to speak, how viable is this? Why I ask this, Doctor, is because in Kenya we have about 5 million hectares of arable land. Zambia has only 3.8 million. And the finance minister in Zambia said that we don't even have enough maize for our very own. This is why we want to abort this mission of perhaps leasing land to Kenya and Kenya coming to grow, and we are selling for them this maize and we don't have enough for ourselves. And so then I'm asking, can we develop our very own? I haven't even talked about the Galana Kolala, which has 1.75 million hectares. Talk about the Bura irrigation scheme. Talk about the Astals counties, which the biggest issue is just water, but it's good enough land for production and growth. All this to avert the issues of food security. How can we go about this? And just as you respond to how we can go about that, also just tell me if it was viable to go to country X and we can develop our very own.
Wow, that's a very good question. And I will link it to a statement that was issued by Kenya Association of Manufacturers a few weeks ago, that they are saying that the production cost here in Kenya is so huge that whenever they are going to sell their products in other countries...
But the government just reduced cost of fertilizers. Does not help?
That might help. But you see now the issue like, for instance, the Kenya Association of Manufacturers, even a cost like a cost of electricity, which the government, instead of reducing, actually it is giving indications that it will increase. The issue of...
It's already increased electricity as we speak.
Yes, electricity, then issue of water, then issue of labor. So when now the CS for agriculture gives an indication that we can go to another country to produce from there, so actually what he's acknowledging and admitting is that the production cost here in Kenya is so huge. And the remedy to that is actually to come up with a mechanism how we can reduce the production cost in Kenya.
But doesn't policy lie within government to look into that?
Yes, it does, and it would be very strange that even the president is pushing for the manufacturing sector to contribute more to the GDP. Right now we are contributing at 7%.
Yes.
But he anticipates that that should go to about 20%. But it cannot go unless we are more competitive when it comes to our price, the pricing of our products. So the CS for agriculture, indicating that we go to Zambia and any other country, is actually acknowledging the same cry that we are receiving from the local manufacturers, saying the issue of taxes. For instance, the EABL is the second best payer of taxes in Kenya after Safaricom. And they are saying that when they're importing something, raw materials, something like ethanol from other countries, the ethanol is taxed at a rate of 100%. And this ethanol taxed at a rate of 100%, then it comes to, they use it to produce their products. Then their products are taxed VAT, there's corporate tax, there's excise tax. Actually, the EABL, according to the records by EABL, is that they charge one bottle of beer 190 shillings, and out of that 190 shillings, 105 is government taxes.
That's quite huge.
That's quite huge. And they say because EABL, they are also in Tanzania, they are also in Uganda, and they say the taxes that they pay to Kenya in terms of maybe the production of one bottle of beer is a third of what they pay in Tanzania or Uganda.
So basically what I'm hearing from you is that we need to reduce on the production cost.
Yes.
And perhaps we are already strapped for time. Perhaps we need to call you again so that we can, elucidate and discuss further on this matter. Because again, I'm just thinking, what is the ripple effect of this? If at all the matter is canvassed, perhaps deliberations made and judgment proffered, and it's now okay to actually go from there or lease land there. What does it mean in the long time for the Kenyan farmer? And what ripple effect does this have on the economy? So I'd want to also look at issues such as that. Also, again, the issue of budgeting. I mean, just before June, perhaps we need to also talk about that. 3.6 trillion budget, deficit of 700 billion, looking at 500 billion internal financing.
Borrowing?
Yes.
Wow,
quite a lot to discuss.
Yes, quite a lot to discuss.
Nonetheless, thank you so much for your time, Daktari, and for your valuable inputs into this conversation. Highly appreciated.
You're very welcome.
Right, I have been speaking to Dr. Maina Kamau, who's a business consultant, definitely what has formed center of this discussion, just looking at where we are as a country in terms of economy, matters of taxation, as well as the finance crisis and how we can perhaps bridge that gap and move away from that mechanisms that also the state can employ in regards to dealing with matters of financing and debt refinancing in this country. Good place to end this conversation, but we have plenty more coming away after this break, so stay with us.
Guys, what is that smell?
Apparently, that is how the rich smell.
You want to say that rich people smell like a dead cockroach?
Hey, kuna mtu leo aliamshwa na zawadi ama ni wachana na maisha yenu? Agatha, whose money are you calling pocket change? Nitakungua ngozi na nikungue eyebrows. Just keep making fun of my situation.
Where are you, Basak? What is that? Are you Garezi? You're calling detective a small problem. Even coming here was a risk that.
Classmates.
wamepata DNA confirmation and apparently it's him. He's dead, man.
I'm so sorry.
Prisoner wetu HPT ni brother Imran.
Brother wako ni terrorist. Kama unaenda kuniseti, malizane tu na wewe hapa.
Naumwa, Katana, naumwa.
Relax, itakuwa sawa.
Kama kweli nakupenda, sifai kukuficha chochote, sio?
Sasa mbona unataka tufanye kazi yenye hatuwezi fanya?
Something big is on the horizon and we need to get ahead of it.
The F5 jets will be airborne in 10 minutes.
You have to leave, Julia, now.
No. What if I am a young girl or not? You and I are only friends.
I really should go now. Besides, I think we should settle everything. Set your ego aside.
How much money, I wonder, will Irazabal and Olegario Montoya be willing to pay?
With each passing day, Olegario's stay is getting shorter and shorter in this small world.
I'll make them pay for all the times they've humiliated me, and I will leave them out on the street.
Hey, boss, what's wrong? What just happened?
Ni moja ya nguzo za 5 za Uislamu na ni muhimu sana kwa kila mmoja azingatie kutilia maanani kufunga katika mwezi huu mtukufu wa Ramadhani.
Katika sisi hujibidiisha ili tuweze kuchuma thawabu ambazo tunaweza kujipatia ndani ya mwezi wa Ramadhani.
Welcome back to the program. We continue with the day's conversation. Time for women at the forefront. Now we just look at what women are doing in different capacities, in different spaces to make a difference to the community and society. And that is also what forms basis of this conversation for the next 40 minutes or so. For the same, I have Maureen Wamboi, Maureen Wadada. AKA Maureen Wadada, yeah? Who's the founder Wadada Pamoja and also a community leader. And there's a lot we need to converse around these issues, Maureen, especially when it comes to bringing on board marginalized groups, assisting societies, assisting communities, using your space to make that difference. But before we get into all that, just for purpose of creating context to this discussion, talk to us about Wadada, when it was formed, when it was established, and what the idea was.
They call me Maureen Wadada.
They call you Maureen Wadada.
Yeah,
but for this discussion, they're calling you Maureen Wamboi.
Yeah.
Okay, fine.
So this is the 6th year.
6th year?
Yeah.
Okay.
I started Wadada Pamoja in 2018.
Yeah.
April. So this April we are getting to 6 years. And I've been working with the community. But before that, I also, through my mom, I was working also with the community because my mom has a children's home, and it was founded when I was in class 7. So I've lived with children who come from difficult circumstances in our house, and it's been a journey.
It's been a journey.
Yes.
You'll tell us how this journey has been, now that you're saying that it's been a journey. You're saying that your mom founded a children's home, and so you've lived with children from different backgrounds, different capacities and areas of life in your home. So does this mean that the children's home was in your home, or sometimes mom would just bring children to the house? What was the dynamics?
She's a social worker.
Okay.
So she was doing community work. I come from Watarongai, in Kajiado County.
Yeah.
So she was a social worker in doing the home-based care. So when interacting with the community, she noticed that some children don't have anywhere to go to in the evening. So first, before the free education, we were having the free, she was providing food and education for the children.
So this was in the 90s, because this is before 2002?
Yes, 99. So that was 99, 2000.
Okay.
So when the free education was introduced, the children had to go to the public school. So we continued with the children who had nowhere to go. Actually, the first boy, I can remember very well, he came from Kisumu. He didn't
All
even
the way
know
to Nairobi.
Kiswahili. Yeah. He never knew any Swahili. So it was a tussle. So when the other kids leave and I come back, I was in class 7.
Yeah, at that point.
Yeah. So when I come back, my mom was a career woman because she's the one who was providing for everything. There were more than 150 kids. So our house was a 3-bedroom house.
Yeah.
So the sitting was where the kids used to come.
Yeah.
The sitting, they cook outside on the fireplace. You know, we are Africans. You just put the 3 stones, that is the kitchen.
Yeah.
So they used to come in the morning, get porridge, have some education from the teachers, and then lunch hour, they have food, they go. So when this boy came, it was my first experience with someone, you don't know anyone.
Was it tough?
It was tough because we could not even communicate, you know. But eventually we had to coexist, and that is when now the other kids came in, and it all started. That was 2001.
2001.
Yeah.
So let me just stay there for a moment, Maureen. Now that you're saying it was tough coexisting, you have siblings?
Yeah.
You have siblings?
Yes.
And so then I'm imagining this is a life that you're used to, perhaps you, your parents, siblings, and then now there's introduction of different people that you're not even aware of. They're not relatives, they're not cousins, they're not family. They're just coming on board because mom has a heart for that.
Yes.
How did it affect your growing up? Just before you even got to the point that you also want to do this, did it at any point, at some point in your life where you feel like, okay, mom is paying a lot of concentration to these children vis-a-vis us, or was it a good balance? Just how was it, that experience for you?
To me, it was easy to blend in because mom had been a community worker for a long time. So I was used to be accommodating people from outside. So having the kids at home, I even, because I'm the last born, and my older sisters were in secondary. So I was the only one in the house. So you see, I got company. Yeah, and we continued.
So for you, it was not difficult at any point?
It was not difficult.
So fast forward this. So then, now this was the first child coming from Kisumu. So then, were children being drawn from any and every area, or it was just a specific set?
Even now, they come from different areas.
Different areas.
Most of them are totally abandoned. Others come through the police and the chiefs. They are vulnerable. Maybe they have only the grandmother. Others, even their relatives, don't want to have anything to do with them. So even now we have like 70 resident kids. Yeah. And 50 from the community.
Okay.
So we cater for 150.
70 from
the
residents and 50 from
the community.
That's 120.
Yes,
120 kids.
Yes.
So then, growing up, this is what oriented you to have a love for this and want to do this. So was this part of what you wanted to do? Community work, social work, or it just shifted based on what now you are seeing around you?
Let me say, right now, I think it's my purpose because
it's your purpose.
I've sacked my soul.
I like what you're saying.
And now I just surrendered. And
I like what you're saying, that it's your purpose, not a job.
No,
it's your purpose.
Yeah.
Just allow me to digress a bit. Why I'm saying that, Maureen, is because we're living at a time where we keep saying, especially for us as young people, we are sort of made to think that you go to school, you go to primary, you go to secondary, you go to campus if you have the chance, you graduate, you get a job, get married, get kids, get old, and perhaps die.
And die.
So I'm stuck between when you leave campus and get a job. And good number of most of us young people don't know that there's something called purpose. They're just like, I did financing, I need to get a job in a bank. I did media, I need to get a job in a media house. I did law, I need to get a job in the law firm. So now when you sit and you tell me that this for you is purpose and not job, then it sort of means like for us as young people, at least now you begin to think beyond the aspect of just getting a job. And so then I want to ask you this question before you continue with our center of discussion. Do you think the lack of understanding of who we are and knowing our purpose as young people is one of the biggest reasons why we even have quite a number of us being jobless? Because then we don't know if I'm not employed here, then there's nothing else I can do. Not knowing your purpose, is that our biggest undoing as young people?
Actually, that is a very nice question. Because if anyone chases something that is not of their soul,
yes, you're deep, eh?
Yeah, you find yourself in a conflict. That is why even most of the youths, you will find them saying, I'm in a depression, because you're going on the wrong route. So you need to take a deep rest and find yourself, and then now you follow your soul path. Yeah.
Follow your soul path.
Yes.
I like that. Take a deep rest, relax, understand who you are, not what you do.
Get in touch with yourself.
Yeah. And you know, I keep saying all the time, there's Miles Monroe, and God rest his soul, he did once say that during the day, work on your job. At night, work on your work.
Yes.
Your job will be paying off your work until it materializes. And your work is basically your purpose. Your job is what you're paid to do.
Actually,
your work is who you are.
That is one of my what do I call them? They make me follow the path.
Your mantra as a person.
Yes, yes.
Well said.
Absolutely.
Now, let's get back to our conversation. All right, so now this orients you to want to do this. This is what now your heart feels like want to do. And fast forward after your school days in 2018, you establish Wadada. So the whole idea was to bring on board these marginalized children.
Yeah, my idea was to bring people together in a harmonious way. So
which people are this?
The women, the children, the old people in the community, because you'll find the old people are left at home. And most of the people now, because of the city and the modern life, we are career people, so we leave these people. So there is a lot of gap. There's a big gap between the working people and the people in the community. So I find myself going back to the community. And when I started Wadada, I was aiming at supporting the talent for the youth. And I started with the reggae industry in Kenya. So I've been in that side. That is why they know me as Maureen Wadada. But also I've been planting trees. I've been doing community work, like in during the lockdown, the 2 years, in the home through Hare Krishna Pangani in Pangani. We were able to provide for 1,500 families with food.
Okay, that's good.
Yeah. So I was the one who was managing the program. I also managed the programs at the children's home and now Wadada. So I wear many coats. It depends with which one you want me to pull up.
One touches. So you're saying that when it began, it was for the idea of talent for the youth.
Yes.
And you did say, is it reggae?
Yeah. I've hosted events at Memorial Park.
This is because this is the style of music that you like.
No, I think that is where I got the space for saying what I want. So in that way,
it was a safe space for you.
Yeah, it was a safe space, and they really welcomed me well. Respect to everyone they're watching, I know. Yeah, and now I also was able to pull the industry into the humanitarian side, you know, because we have to take care of each other.
Yeah, well said. So then do you still continue this talent for young people? Why I ask this is because, just as you said earlier, we are having a lot of young people wallowing in depression, anxiety, committing suicide, unemployment. I mean, there's just quite a lot of issues. Anytime you touch about young people, you can't miss an array of issues to discuss that is ailing the young person. Do you continue with this talent for young people? And if you do, how does the structure look like? How do you assist?
We continue through my partner, Stephen.
Yeah.
The Omundi
Yes.
is watching.
Yeah.
Stephen Odhiambo, sorry.
Yeah.
We have a studio at called Roots Radio, Nairobi.
That's in Rongai?
No, it's at Ruaka.
Okay.
So we just do online stuff. It began during the lockdown. So
As
you
well.
know that time people shifted online. So it's a studio where we give opportunity to the talented ones. I also organize with the youth, the DJs, MCs, the musicians, to do some stuff in the community. Like we have concerts, and I give them a platform where they can be able to express themselves.
Okay,
Yeah.
that's good enough. So how do you go about selecting these youths? Is there a mechanism? Because truth be told, there's quite a number of us, many young people, but you really can't bring all of them. So there has to be a structure and mechanism that you perhaps use as a person to assist these young people move a step further. Which structure is this? How do you get them on board?
I move with vibration. Let me say
So if you vibe...
Yeah, because I find myself working with one person, maybe for a time, and then you might find like after 2 months, we never meet with that person. So every person I take it as a
But you've
a
helped
project.
them
one by
move a
one.
step further.
Yeah, and give them guidelines and connection. You know, when you give, if you know somewhere someone can get something, just show them. Yeah, and it will make someone, because maybe someone, you see the youths having depression or all that stuff. You might find that they are lacking only one person who might hold their hand, you know, and maybe listen to them. So I try do it on my level.
As much as you can.
Yeah.
How can you track the progress? I want to stick on that talent for a bit before we move to other issues, the women, children, and the old people. But then, how have you tracked the progress as a person so that then you know, much as after some time you will, this person is already on their feet and they can be able to make something out of their life. But then how do you track the progress to know that between period X and Y, because you began during COVID, that was in 2020. So at least in this year alone, or in this a number of months, I have assisted a certain number of youths. Yes, they've left my wings, but I'm so sure wherever they are going, they're making something out of whatever they've gathered from this place. How do you track the progress?
Since 2018, when I started the reggae stuff, mostly you'll find men are the ones in that sector, in the entertainment. So now the women in the reggae industry are forefront. You'll find the DJs.
And that's a genre that you won't find most women?
Yeah, you wouldn't even find. Because the first time I even asked, I was in a place, I asked the one who was the promoter, everyone, the DJs, is there even one woman who can be a DJ? Yeah, because you'll find most of the revealers, maybe it's a club, most of the revealers are women. So my question was, why can't you even give an opportunity to a DJ woman? Because the ones who are bringing you customers are women, you see. So right now, you'll find that they are doing it well. I also was able to work with the young generation, DJs who are coming up, and now they have a space, you know. Now the women in the reggae industry have a good space. If you follow,
and they have a voice.
Yeah.
Okay, I hear you. So then now coming to the other things that you deal with, women, children, and old people. And so then I want to start with women, because right now you would get a lot of conversations that a lot of focus has been put on the girl child, quite a lot. And you've even had the second lady having or looking into programs that will incorporate the male child, looking at financing, looking at mentorship. But here you are targeting women. Just before I go into what you deal with as Wadada and as a person and assisting the community and society, from where you sit, do you actually feel a lot has been done, so much so for the woman at the expense, or for the girl at the expense of the boy?
Sure.
You feel that's the case?
Yes, I feel that way.
This is interesting. This is actually the first lady I'm talking to says that.
The boy child has been forgotten.
So you actually agree that indeed it's good to do for the woman, but you actually agree that a lot has been done for the woman at the expense of the boy.
Yeah, because
it's interesting,
to have a man and woman,
you
get balance. So if you empower the woman more than the man, the man's ego goes down. So the man won't be able to be himself, the man, you see. And the woman, you can't be a man. You're a woman. So you have to find balance. Yeah.
So we've missed that balance.
Yes.
Much as a society is patriarchal, and we've said that over time, but you feel we have given so much focus to the girl at the expense of the boy.
Sure.
I'll come to that in a short while. But before then, Maureen, so then tell me about these programs that you have for women, children, and old people.
Okay, at the home, we have programs that we provide food for them and even clothes, because we get donation from the local community. Actually, the local community really helps us, supports the children's home. So when we get, we also support the community. The community I live in is called Olekasase. Yeah, and Ongatarongai ward. Yeah.
So these are the ones that you call the marginalized, marginalized groups. When it comes to women, what is the age bracket? What are we looking at? Is it teens? Is it just young women?
All of them, in different, grouped in differently.
Differently?
Yeah, because all of them have needs.
All of them have needs. And this is around Rongai?
Yeah.
What issues are you seeing in your community now that you largely deal with community, you're largely a community-based kind of organization, I should say, and you look at ways you can assist communities, and just looking at perhaps the different demographics that you're helping and seeing how best you can help them to grow and make life meaningful for them. And now that you're saying that when it comes to women, for example, it actually is of all ages, I should say.
Yeah.
Let me stick with teens a bit. What issues are you seeing within your community that these young adults are facing? And I'll tell you why I asked that is because right now schools are closed, right? Some are closing today, some tomorrow, some did yesterday. And anytime schools are closed, you won't miss an expedite number or a high increase of perhaps teen pregnancies. We never miss to report about that. So what issues are you seeing in your communities that perhaps you're helping these young people deal with?
One of them is they need someone to listen to them. Yeah, because you'll find most of us parents, as we say, we are busy chasing the money, you see? And you leave your kid at home. Maybe if you're not well up, you don't have a helper or a house manager, as they call them. You leave the kid in the house alone, you see? Or you leave them with the house manager or the house helper. So these kids, who guides them? Who tells them what to do or what is expected of them? They watch the TV, see? They are exposed to the internet. So I always encourage parents, just try, even if the hustle is, you have to hustle because you have to get the food and the bread. Just take time and listen to your kid.
Take time and listen to your kid. So as Wadada, as far as this young girls is concerned, is providing a listening ear to them. That's the kind of program you have for them. Do you also provide mentorship?
We also provide mentorship. We also provide a base of, we have a large base that we have even entrepreneurs, we have maybe students, so we can even connect those ones who maybe have opportunities. So we're like a community.
Literally a community. So when it comes to even business and entrepreneurs, this entrepreneurship, I should say, this even comes up for older women, perhaps those that do not have the financing for some of these businesses. Do you assist them with getting this?
Yeah, we assist because
how do you do that? You know, financing is a big challenge.
Yeah, financing is most of the time it's not easy. But I work with you see, from the Kikuyu, and they say, can I say it?
Yeah.
Adonyoido.
Then you can translate it to us.
People are the wealth you're looking for. So you treat people good.
Social capital is the best wealth you can.
Now you put it right.
Yes. So you can. So that means you treat people
Yeah, well, and then you get what? Because everything you need is here with you.
Everything you need is here with you. Yeah. So then just tell me a bit about that financing. So yes, you're saying that you treat people well and everything that you need is actually here with you. But then you realize most of these community organizations, they always start with a good idea, good agenda, just as yours, which began in 2018. And sometimes sustaining it always becomes a challenge, especially when you look at yours, for example. The programs are quite a number, looking at youths and talent, looking at women, looking at the young people, for instance, looking at what? The children, the old persons. And number of times, financing, always a big issue, that they will start with a good idea, good notion, but sustaining it would make them stop midway. So just want to get from you, and perhaps even for someone who's watching and this perhaps is within their mind, they want to do this within their community, maybe not in Rongai, but somewhere else in Kisumu, somewhere else in Kakamega, and they're wondering, the idea is there, but how do I help my community? What are the structures that you have in place for financing so that it has become sustained all this while?
Okay, on my part, I don't work alone.
Okay.
Yeah, I work with the community leaders. I have people who have seen me journey, and so they support me. And every day I make it a habit of always looking for more people to support. So I do it on a daily basis. So I use internet, and everyone has phone. You have a phone on your... Instead of going to WhatsApp and watching videos of what, try and use it for your own.
For your own good. And also, I mean, Maureen, there's also quite a lot I want us to converse around, especially when it comes to children and old people. I'd want to understand from you what programs are this, particularly when it comes to children and old people. And just as you had rightfully said earlier, Maureen, is that at times, if not all the times, we forget about the old people and we don't even think that they have needs. In fact, sometimes we say, you already lived your life. So in fact, when you're old, just go to Ushago. What are you still doing in the city? You can be productive. But we good number of times forget that they have needs. So I'd also want to pick your mind on what programs do you have for them? How do you sustain? And also when it comes to children, and not forgetting the education fair coming in April. What program is this? What is it supposed to achieve? We'll talk about that after this break.
Thank you.
Time for us to take that breather, and clearly also plenty in store for you in regards to this conversation. So don't go anywhere. Just stay put. At that point, we come back with plenty more of this.
Did he fall? Mr. Bai! Wake up, Mr. Bai!
Hey, help him sit up.
Bai.
Help him sit up.
Where are you going?
Oh, Liam, I have to go to the hospital.
To see Harvey, right? I'll give you a ride.
It's
Come
fine.
on.
I can go myself.
We're losers in a game of love, right?
I don't know whether I am or not now.
But you treated me like your feelings garbage can.
Mimi sitakuunga mkono kufanya usherati ati kwa sababu sisi ni wanaume. Never.
Huku lazima nikae rada, naweza chomewa kwa hii nyumba.
Why is that house of yours?
Fired.
Well, you have all my blessings, Lawrence.
Christine is done with you.
Na nafanya nini kwetu?
Ushisikia kufanya vitu officially? Kwa ulipata kazi?
Simu kwa na kazi.
What is wrong with you?
Trish, unafanya nini hapa?
Oleni.
You tell your sister everything.
Well, it's not like that.
Uende ukatafute Jackie akuoneshe bomba mengine kuliko iba bwana wenyewe.
Mimi nilitumiwa vibaya.
Na nani? Shetani?
Hapana. Na Jackie.
Kwani kuna shetani mwingine?
This is my marriage, so let me deal with it.
You have to leave, Julia, now.
No.
What if I am a young girl or not? You and I are only friends.
I really should go now. Besides, I think we should settle everything. Set your ego aside.
How much money, I wonder, will Irazabal and Olegario Montoya be willing to pay?
With each passing day, Olegario stay is getting shorter and shorter in this small world.
I'll make them pay for all the times they've humiliated me, and I will leave them out on the street.
Hey, boss, what's wrong? What just happened?
We definitely appreciate your valid company. We continue with our discussion of the day on Women at the Forefront. Still speaking to Maureen Wambui, founder, Wadada Pamoja, and community leader. Before we took that break, Maureen, we now want to talk about children and the program for children. And you did tell us, indeed, this has actually just come out from the love, the passion, and the purpose and what you saw your mom do, because I mean she was largely dealing with children, okay, picking them from different parts of the country as at then. So with what you do at Wadada, what programs are you having for children, and then do you pick them within Rongai or is it beyond?
About children,
yes.
It's under St. Paul's Children's Home.
Okay.
The home is located in Ongata Rongai. The director is Honorable Margaret Mbote, and she's my mom. Now, she's also doing it until now. Actually, I lived there. I came from there this morning. Even I dropped some kids at school.
Yeah, and then you came.
Yeah. So we have kids who come in with different stories. Like recently, we had one who was dropped with a motorbike at the gate.
How
with
old?
A letter. He's supposed to join class 1, so I think he's 7 years.
Was dropped at the gate?
The
children's home?
Yeah, the children's home gate with a letter written from his aunt saying that she's tired living with him and she wants us to take care of him. And it was at night. Yeah. And many other cases. Some were abandoned when we had these paper bags, the yellow one, in a road, just a junction. Today I dropped her at school. She's in Form 1.
Wait.
Yeah.
So you've actually handled children who are
from
dropped
one day.
Yeah. Because those are the stories we would hear then.
Yes.
You know, a mother just drops a child, 1 day old, some even hours, somewhere on the roadside. You pick.
We pick, or we are called by the police in Ongata Rongai, or the chief, the community members. They all know about the children's home because now we are 24 years old. So the community really embraces us. And now, in any case of any child who has any problem, they are referred to us.
They're referred to you.
Yeah.
And you're saying that one classical case of that is a child who's now in Form 1.
Yeah.
So look at the milestones. So what programs do you have for these children? How do you keep them engaged?
We provide them with education and food. The kitchen has to keep on having fire. They have to see some smoke there. So that gives them hope. They'll eat and the day will be good. At the home we have a preschool, so the kids go there. Also after when they are supposed to join grade 1, they go to the local schools, like the Ole Kasasi Primary School. It's a public. The others are at Faithland. The others, in the community. Ole Kasasi Secondary. We also have junior high. So there are others in Acacia Park School. And also we provide them with mentorship. The community members help us to mentor the kids, and we also integrate them with the community, because when now they get to 18 years, they have to move out of the home. But we ensure that they get maybe training or a course. They go to college, university. Currently we have one in final year in Quea, and in a university. There are others in college. And then after that, when they finish college, we help them get jobs. And then now we have more than 100 alumni who have lived and grown up in the home, and now they have their own families out there. And they always come once a year for a get-together. So
you actually keep track of these children,
even
much
now.
as you will take them sometimes when they are very young, just been born. Some years later, you take them through school and all these programs, and at 18 they have to exit, but you still keep track of these children
until now.
Even
with their partners, others have started their own families. They have kids. We keep track of
this
them.
Can only take passion and purpose. I mean, it's not an easy job to do with the community there. But also, have you had instances where a guardian or a parent comes and claims and they say they want their children back?
Yes.
Have you had such experiences?
Yes.
How do you deal with that?
They have to go through the children's office, because now when we have the kid, it's the children, according to the state, they are state property. So if the parents want their kids, now they are referred to the children's office. They have to go there and follow the right procedures.
Follow the right procedures
but
to get.
It's not easy to just give them back.
Because that's what I'm asking. I mean, how the experience of that? Because I'm imagining you've taken a child who perhaps was thrown in one of those bags. Maybe 2 days old. You know, whatever you name it, and you've been like the mother and the father of this child all their life. And perhaps they get to 13, 14, and a guardian comes and says, this is actually my child, and they want to reclaim their child back. I'm trying to imagine the kind of experience this will have for you as someone who's in this community, and this is what you do. Does it in any way draw you back, make you feel like you want to just lag a bit? Or does it actually motivate you to continue to do this work? What is it?
Actually, it motivates us.
It actually motivates you?
Because
so it's a problem that gives you...
because now if the parents come back for the kids or their relatives, number one, it assures the kid that they belong to someone. You're not living in this world and you don't know who you belong to. Even
the children's home, as you say.
We also, the others who even come without names. We even have one who is called Ezra Chiloba. He came during the 2017 election, and then there was this tussle about Ezra Chiloba. So we gave him the Ezra Chiloba.
Wow.
So, but in most cases, they don't come back. I don't know why. I'm still trying to get why these guardians or the parents, when they identify the kid is at the children's home, they wait for them to finish school from 4. And then now they start following them out there. They tell them, I'm your parent. And now the kid, because they know that they don't have parents, they find somewhere to belong. They follow them. But later they will come back.
They'll come back.
Because if they left them one day, they still leave them in one way or the other.
So basically, even with this, that's why when it came to the young girls, and I believe that you also do this for the boys, perhaps. You really do the mentorship program for them. You basically empower them for whatever life.
We empower them in a way that they are even when they finish, maybe they go to college, university, they get a job, they are able to help now
The ones
where they come from.
Or the ones they left behind.
Yes.
That's a good initiative. Now, the old people, I did say to you earlier, Maureen, that we are living in our community where we do not, let me not use the negative. Let me say we pay less attention to the older people. In fact, we even say, I'm working, when I get old, I'm building my home somewhere in my village in Kakamega because I want to go there. And that's the rationale within our African context. And so for those who are not able to, then anytime they get old, we say, go. But you have an initiative whereby you are also targeting older persons. Just talk to me a bit about, first of all, what made you feel the need to do that? Because even from what Mom was doing was basically the young children, picking them from here and there, the older persons. What is this that you saw that made you feel, okay, I think I also want to do this to assist the community in one way or the other?
Let me answer your question with a scenario.
Okay.
Take for example of a woman, maybe she's single with children and she's a casual worker. And now she is beyond age that she can be called to do the mamafua, you see, to do the casual work. Now, who will provide for her?
And she doesn't.
She doesn't have anywhere to retire to. Maybe she can't go back to her village. She doesn't have a house that she had built, so she's still renting. You see, she still needs the support. She cannot go for the manual jobs, so she'll need food. These basic things, they are not basic to some people.
I think that's what we need to keep saying. Whatever that we keep saying is basic, it's not basic to everyone. It matters. So when you looked at this scenario within your community, made you feel the need that I could assist children in my community, I could assist women and the young people, but also there's a specific set and demographic that we term as the older persons, which also need to be brought on board. How has that program looked like? How have you done it so far? Before you go to education.
Most of the time we have food programs. We provide them with food, and maybe like cold times we give them the clothes, the coats, and blankets.
So literally assist them within where they stay.
Yes.
Okay, I hear you. And for these 7 remaining minutes you have before we exit and sit ground for the Senate, I want us now to talk about the education fair. It's coming up on the 22nd of April.
This Saturday. Actually.
Oh, it's actually this. Oh, true. Today's 19th. So tell me about this education fair. What's the whole idea behind it?
The education fair, we came up with it with my group as a way of trying to bring the community together and making a pool that can support each other. Maybe it's a school. Now, on this base of an education fair, a school needs books, like revision books. There is a bookshop within the community. Instead of going to buy them in a faraway bookshop, you buy it in the bookshop in the community. The community maybe gives back to the community. You see, now we are rotating together, or we are pulling our resources together.
Okay. So that's the whole idea. It will be taking place between 9 a.m. and 5 a.m.
On Saturday. We have invited the different education stakeholders in Ongata Rongai ward. Our guest of honor will be Honorable Onesimus Ngogoyo. He's the area member of parliament in Kajiado North. And also we have support of the MCA, Honorable Titus Madeka. My mom also, she's a Mheshimiwa. She's the patron. And we also have Honorable Mary Senator, Honorable Gather. We have a lot of leaders.
There's different stakeholders.
Even the DCC in Kajiado North. We have brought, our aim is to improve the education level or the mentality in Ongata Rongai. Because I've lived there for the longest while, and most of the youths, or not even the youths, they are the middle-aged people. Most of them maybe are not going, there are those who are well up, and there are those who are drowning in misery, like drinking alcohol or what. And if they were in one way mentored when they were young, you see, they will maybe have made a different decision that will have affected their future now. So our aim is to influence the future of our kids now. We are talking about 10 years, 20 years to come. We have a better future and a better Ongata Rongai ward.
Better community. Because I was just about to ask you then, what is the aim, you know, of this fair? But also just tell me. So then when you talk about empowering in that regard and looking at this particular fair, so then is this in terms of them just purchasing books that they read for life, or just what kind of books are we talking about?
We'll have different exhibitors who will be coming. We have Tricent School of Medical Health and Science Technology. We have needs. Should I mention them?
Just stick at that one.
We have different of them, colleges, university, providers of
so different institutions.
Yeah, so that the people in Ongata Rongai and the environment may be able to know the opportunities that are available for them in the community.
So this is also in a way that they can be able not to just read, but also know what lies ahead or beyond the reading. What opportunities can they get and make the most out of it? Has this been an ongoing program, or it is just beginning?
Actually, this is the first ever education fair in Kajiado North constituency and Kajiado County at large. I'm also having the support of the Deputy Governor, Moshisho, and in Kajiado, we want to make it a better, the face of it, to change the face, because we feel the need that the parents and the students are the base. So we are targeting the parents, and this event, I'm also inviting all parents who are watching, students. You can remember last year we had two classes completing their candidacy in Form 4 and so all these are they're outside here. Just come and interact with the providers of services maybe you would want in the you can even do some medical courses with a D and a C minor. You see, so
you just grow
it's
into
never
it.
the end of the world.
And also, I mean, when you say that, I mean, it also just opens up the fact that it's never the end of the world what you got. And yes, when you say 2 classes, of course, that was both grade, actually class 8 in Form 4.
In Form 4.
Class 8 already went to Form 1. So we're talking about Form 4s who are still in the house waiting to get to higher learning, and they might not know what to do, and this cuts across, because education, we say, is the only equalizer. It's the only equalizer. And now that this is the first of its kind, perhaps a good place for me to also ask you, what does the long-term vision of this look like? Because you're saying that education is the only equalizer, and there are various ways in which you can get educated. Like for this one, for instance, not just in a class setup, there are many other avenues one can get education from. What is the long-term vision for this?
So we are looking at having the education fair every holiday. That will be 3 times in a year. So that we can keep the community together, expose all the opportunities that are available. We are also inviting more partners to come and showcase their opportunities that they have with us. And when we pull together, we come together, better things happen.
Better things happen when we come together. Now, lastly, Maureen, as we conclude, what is this that you'd want communities to know, societies to know, and even for anyone who's watching? Remember that earlier on I had asked you, and I'd actually said to you that these are normally very good ideas, community-centered organizations, and someone could be watching and they're thinking, I equally want to do the same from my specific county. Could be beyond Nairobi, but I'm just able to perhaps accommodate it within 6 months based on what I have as a person. So then what more do I need to do to be able to sustain these communities, this organization, for the benefit of that society and that village around there and that community? What is it, from also your experience borrowing from this 5 years you've been in this space, what is this you would want them to know as you conclude?
Just know that it's all in your mind. if you say you cannot, you will not. If you say you will, you will. So it's all in your mind.
It's all in your mind. Whether finances are there, it's all in your mind.
It's all in your mind because when you were born, you were given all the power. So you have to claim your power and just know your purpose, and then everything will flow.
Just know your purpose, everything will flow. I like that. Good place to end this conversation, Maureen. And thank you so much for your time. And also just helping us understand what it is that you do. You know, anytime we have such kind of discussions, we're always thinking that you need to be somewhere in a white-collar job, seated in an office. But I like how you're saying that it's actually about purpose at the end of the day. It's who you are and what you're created to do, not necessarily what exactly you're doing, but who you are.
And also remember, you did not come in this world for vain. You have a purpose.
If you're still living and breathing, means that there's something you still need to do and accomplish.
And if you're still here even today, you have a purpose. And if you don't fulfill your purpose, you'll come again and do it.
And that makes room for you as a person. Thank you very much, Maureen, for your time. Highly appreciated.
Thank you.
I've been speaking to Maureen Wamboi, founder wa Dada Pamoja, and also a community leader, just talking to us about basically what she's doing within her community in this segment, Women at the Forefront, which is basically all about that, what women are doing in their various capacities and spaces to make a difference within their communities and society. Good place to end this conversation, and ultimately, good morning, Kenya, from me, and on behalf of the entire team. We always appreciate your valid company. We now sit ground for the Senate coming in a short while.
Say to make it right, 'cause I need your arms around me every night. To me, your world.
What was that? Hey, who is that?
Did he fall? Mr. Bai! Wake up, Mr. Bai!
Hey, help him sit up.
Bai.
Help him sit up.
Where are you going?
Liam, I have to go to the hospital.
To see Harvey, right? I'll give you a ride.
It's
Come
fine,
on.
I can go myself.
We're losers in a game of love, right?
I don't know whether I am or not now.
But you treated me like your feelings garbage can.
رحمن ربي رحيم وعزيز ربي حليم.
Ni moja ya nguzo za 5 za Uislamu, na ni muhimu sana kwa kila mmoja azingatie kutilia maanani kufunga katika mwezi huu mtukufu wa Ramadhani,
katika sisi hujibidiisha ili tuweze kuchuma thawabu ambazo tunaweza kujipatia ndani ya mwezi wa Ramadhan.
Mimi sitakuunga mkono kufanya usherati ati kwa sababu sisi ni wanaume. Never.
Huku lazima nikae rada, naweza chomewa kwa hii nyumba.
Why is that house up of yours?
Fired.
Well, you have all my blessings, Lawrence.
Christine is done with you.
Na nafanya nini kwetu?
Ushisikia kufanya vitu officially? Kwa ulipata kazi?
Simu kwa na kazi.
What is wrong with you?
Sisi unafanya nini hapa?
Oleni.
You tell your sister everything.
Well, it's not like that.
Uende ukatafute Jackie akuoneshe bomba mengine kuliko iba bwana wenyewe.
Mimi nilitumiwa vibaya.
Na nani? Shetani?
Hapana. Na Jackie.
Kwani kuna shetani mwingine?
This is my marriage, so let me deal with it.
Broadcast brought to you courtesy of the collaboration between the Kenya Broadcasting Corporation and the Parliamentary Broadcasting Unit. There is a lot of business to be considered by the Senate this morning, and to just take you through some of the agendas that have been given highlights in the order of business today is that the Senator for Nandi County, Senator Samson Cherargei, will be tabling his bill. This particular bill, it is at the first stage, popularly known as the first reading, the Prevention of Livestock and Produce Theft Bill, this being Senate Bill number 12 of the year 2023. The Senate Leader of Majority will be moving a motion, and this particular motion will have the Senate resume debate on the Division of Revenue Bill, and this is National Assembly Bills number 9 of the year 2023. The senators were yesterday in the afternoon sitting discussing or debating this particular bill with the proposals in that particular bill, and we expect that that particular debate will resume with senators making their contributions regarding to the proposals in the bill on the allocation of revenue collected. The Equalization Fund Bill and Appropriations Bill number 3 of the year 2023 from the Senate is another bill that will be debated at the second stage, and this particular bill is by the Chairperson Standing Committee on Matters Finance and Budget. And what usually happens at this particular second stage is that senators make their contributions in regards to the proposals in the bill before it heads to the Committee of the Whole, popularly known as the that stage where changes might be made to that particular bill in regards to the proposals that could have come out of the second reading. There